Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the New World. Truly, because this is a vanilla tournament. There are no Asian dynasty civilizations involved in this. There are no Siberia or Mongolia or strange maps that are not part of the New World, yet are in Age of Empires 3. So, there is that. But yes, here we have, in the south of the map, in the color blue, playing as the Spanish here, Gaia. Spain is one of the strongest civilizations on the vanilla Age of Empires 3, believe it or not. Definitely for a number of reasons. We'll talk more about that in a moment. He's hunting quite far away from his town centre. They're having to walk quite a lot. That's not too good. I'm sure he doesn't like that. But here we see his explorer heading straight over to a trading post, and his war dog now making his way up this side of the map. Let's switch over to his opponent, who is, if I remember correctly, yes, playing as the Ottoman here, building a trading post right down there. Ottoman, of course, also top tier on vanilla, as they are on the Asian dynasties, and the war chiefs, and every other version of Age of Empires 3, I suppose. He's laying down a trading post because, of course, Ottomans start with a lot of extra wood, just like they do on the Asian dynasties. They cost 250 wood here, but whilst he's building it, as we switch over to Gaia, we see Gaia sends his units right up the middle here, looking for that Ottoman explorer. He knows his opponent's playing Ottoman, he knows that trading post is going to go up, and he knows this map is New England, he knows where all the trading posts are. So he's going to try and, not take the explorer out before the trading post goes up, because that's nigh on impossible. You're going to get the trading post up, no matter what. But what he can do is put a lot of damage onto this explorer. Really, use the war dog to do a lot of damage here, bringing the explorer into combat as well, and he might be able to kill that and deny the his opponent, the Ottoman opponent, an explorer. Because we take a look at, if we switch over to him, Shmras here, put the fog of war back on, hasn't scouted very much of the map. He's going to try and take out as much of that health on that war dog as he can, but losing a lot of hit points there. If I were him, what he could have done is perhaps targeted one of the Mother Nature wolves here, and then the wolf would have killed him. And then if Mother Nature kills him, then blue does not get any XP. Of course, you get 45 XP for doing that. But also what he's done here is he's placed his explorer next to the trading post, which is also quite good, because when the explorer gets 100 hit points, he will stand back up straight away, because he's next to a friendly building, and that's pretty good. So there is that, but you can see his exploration is pretty bad. What he's done is, he had two options at the start of the game. Go straight for this post, which is the closest one, you get that up right away. I'll go for this post, which is perhaps, not the one that they expect you to go to, and it wasn't. We saw Gaia go straight here to look for the explorer, but he ended up building it here, losing the explorer nonetheless, and it's not too bad for him. I mean, he's still got hunt, he's got this deer herd right here, and he's got a hunt in his base, his very first hunt, but certainly is not going to find the hunt behind his town. Sorry, this one here is a 90 food treasure there. He's not going to come across his coin mines and stuff like that. And, of course, not this hunt on the front. He does not have access to that. He's going to have to wait until, of course, that explorer is back to life. Definitely a good start for Gaia. Here we see eating the sheep. Going to try and get up to the next stage really quickly. Almost has all of the food he will need to get up to the next stage. Let's switch over to Gaia in the south of the map. Only on 500 food, and it goes to show exactly how much faster Ottoman, even on vanilla and every other game version, how much faster they age up. Spain, here, hasn't even finished his settler production yet. Going to go up on 16 villages. That's quite a lot. Yeah, what's he done? Normally you go up on 15 with Spain, but here going to go up on 16. What he could do, he's just found 80 food, so if he deleted that villager now, he could go up, but it's probably not worth doing that, because, let's be honest, it's almost, halfway created, and villagers do take, you don't get many, in Age of Empires 3, I mean, a little bit of an irrelevant comment, but in Age of Mythology, villagers gather at similar speeds to villagers, in Age of Empires 3, so you get, definitely, a lot more villagers in Age of Mythology, so yeah, anyway, gonna go up with that. Now going up with the Governor, that is an outpost and 200 coin, now starting to collect a lot of wood here, and by the looks of it is looking to lay down a trading post. Of course, I want to get up to the next stage as fast as you can, going up on 16 villages, which is going to make him 25 seconds slower than normal. Perhaps he's slower because the hunts were, quite far away from his town, but, anyway, almost has all of that wood. He's going to need 250 wood for the trading post, and is, of course, want to get that down, because the fast fortress is particularly strong for this civilization on vanilla. We'll talk more about that in a moment, but Shmras, definitely well on his way to the colonial age. Lots of food in queue here. Not very many people on gold, just a few there. And I'm looking to see if these two settlers will move now. He's got 100 gold. He's aging up with, by the looks of it, a tower and 200 coin. And this 100 gold he's got, and plus the 200 is 300. And then with the 700 gold shipment is enough for 1,000, which is the amount required to age up. And by the looks of his deck, you can clearly see he has some sort of fortress agenda in mind. Bearing in mind this is Age of Empires 3 vanilla. You only have 20 cards in your deck. And, you know, judging by his age-up politician, I think he clearly wants to go up to the next age. Ottoman has a very powerful fast fortress, and it gets up to the next stage very, very quickly indeed. You can see here, 700 coin. Oh, yeah, 700 coin now on the way. He did delete that and then started to send it again. So he clearly has some sort of fortress agenda in mind. He's now got this outpost wagon. Where is it going? We will find out. But yes, let's talk about Gaia. Here he is. Almost up. 2 shipments already available. That is something. Spain clearly get their shipments very quickly because, you know, yes, he's got a trading post, but that's only been up for a little while. On vanilla, believe it or not, Spain receive their shipments even faster than they do on TAD, and that is, you know, why they're really strong on vanilla. It's one of the strongest civilizations, and this is simply because of the shipments. On vanilla, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's something like they get their shipments 33% cheaper than any other civilization, something like that. I'm not sure if that's actually correct, but on TAD, the Asian dynasties, it was reduced to something like 26% or 27. You know, it was nerfed quite a lot, and because of that, they don't have as many shipments available to them in the Fortress Age, and because of that, their fast fortress isn't quite as strong. Now, sending 700 gold, so this definitely affirms any suspicions of a fast fortress that he may or may not be doing. He's definitely going to be going up to the Age 3. Both of them are both very strong in Age 3. So Ottoman, you know, they do get quite a lot of XP as well due to the trading post that they have at the very beginning of the game, and they got some very strong shipments such as 8 Janissaries, very cost effective in terms of resources, 5 Abbas guns, 2 falconets, and that disgusting 5 Mameluke shipment that the Ottoman for some reason have. 700 wood now on the way. He has a lot of food in queue. And he has all the gold he needs. He's just collecting the last of it up from this coin crate on the floor. But that is a lot of food. You can see, you know, Ottoman, since they age up so quickly, and they get up to the Fortress Age at about 7 minutes. But because everything happens so quickly for them, they generate all this extra food. And what I would have maybe liked to have seen him do is collect. You see, he's got 150 wood there. He could have collected 50 wood. Pop down a barracks, you know, quicker. Of course, that 700 wood he's now sending will fund his barracks. But, you know, if he had that barracks a bit sooner and he had, you know, he had so much extra food that he didn't need to age up with, he could have spent, you know, a little bit of time gathering 50 wood. Build that barracks a bit sooner, get 1 Janissary in production, and you see this wood now on the floor. He could build a house out of that the moment he gets 100 wood, and then he could queue the other Janissaries, and, you know, round about now, maybe in 5 or 10 seconds time, he could have, say, like 5 Janissaries on the field, and they could start to siege down his opponent's post here. But ultimately, he's still going to get all of those units out. It's just going to take him slightly longer. We see the barracks now going down here. And these outpost placements, let's talk about that. Let's turn the fog of war off here. We see Red placing it just on the front here near this trading post. And also, more importantly, next to the lake, because we don't want any funny business on the lake here. You can change your spawn points, of course, these water spawn points, and in their deck they do have a frigate shipment, 2 galleys, and I'm sure that the Spanish player will switch over to him. Gaia, here he is. Ooh, 5 villagers. Alright, this is different. Okay, but also he's placed his thingy on the lake, and he has a frigate and, you know, that kind of stuff in his deck, and they're really, really strong. So these outposts have a crazy anti-ship damage there, but 5 villagers now popping out for Gaia. That is, I wasn't expecting this, and he's training musketeers now in the colonial. Perhaps then, this isn't, like, normally I'd associate trading musketeers in colonial age with some sort of super aggressive fast fortress where your first shipment is, well, 7 rods, believe it or not, and then you can follow up with 2 cannons, and you'd have, say, like 10 musks, 7 rodellos by the time you hit fortress, meaning you have enough anti-cavalry to protect a 2 cannon shipment. But by the looks of it, you know, sending 5 villagers, this is definitely not super aggro. He's going down the more economic route, and certainly opted in to build a market with the hunting dogs, I would assume, plus placer mines and the gang saw upgrade. So looking to be more economical this game, but is that really the best course of action? Because we switch over to Shmras, here he is, all now up to fortress. This looks quite late actually, up at 7 minutes and 26 seconds. Ottoman do usually get up at about 7 minutes or under. Very, very fast for a fast fortress, but, you know, actually at 7 minutes 30, which is about the same time Spain get up, so, you know, a little bit late. Maybe this economic whatever he's doing is going to pay off because it's later, but Shmras, you know, now has 2 cannons on the way. He's got 5 Janissaries out now, 4 Abbas guns from hitting up, 5 more Janissaries about to pop out, and I'm sure he will get that veteran Janissary upgrade any moment now. He certainly has the wood for it. 200 coin there. Come on, is it going to go in? Come on, come on, come on, Shmras. 200 there it is. Veteran Janissaries now going up. There we have it. So, definitely a lot of anti-cavalry and a tomahawk treasure which he found. Going to be able to protect those 2 cannons, and if all this pressure comes down on him, yeah, he's got musketeers, but he's, you know, having spent a 5 villager shipment, certainly he's still going to have, you know, lots of shipments available, but he's going to have 1 less ultimately. After this 5 lancer shipment, you know, the next shipment won't arrive quite as quickly, and holding the pressure could be a bit difficult. That is the point I'm trying to make here, but certainly taking out that trading post did get a decent amount of value out of it. but in terms of XP for him, but now no longer has that. If this were a map like Great Plains where it's in your town, certainly you get more value out of that trading post. So not looking too good for Garja there, having lost his trading post. But yes, some skirmishes out. The fact that he trained those musketeers looks like he's not going to have quite as many skirmishes. And really, what are these musketeers? Aren't they're not that useful, really. I mean, they're beaten by falconets pretty hard, and they're also not. Skirmishes are definitely better counters to janissaries. So I think this is an interesting decision, but certainly we'll see what he intends to do with them. A new shipment available. Both players playing quite passively here. We'll see what his shipment is. 2 falconets. Okay, so he's going to use of course, perhaps that's what they were for. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh on him. He had the intention of sending falconets all along, and these 10 musketeers are certainly going to be able to protect them. And we'll switch over to Shmras and see what he's doing. 8 janissaries now on the way. Perhaps that's what he's waiting for. I feel I question whether or not his choice to not push in is interesting here. Two cavalry here trying to get some raids in, perhaps trying to kill some settlers, but he sees 2 cannons there, coming in for both very low hit points. Going to try and kill a cannon there, taking a few shots on the cannon. Cannon going down, losing about a third of his hit points there, just to 2 random hussars. I don't think that was worth it, but still it could be useful in getting rid of course, these cannons that both players now have. They both have falconets, or at least if Garja doesn't, then they are certainly on the way. 2 cannons about to arrive here. Where are they? They are there. I thought he'd ship them to the forward tower. Where is his forward tower? I don't think he... Yeah, no, he did. He built it on next to the water, but not forward like this one here. Now I'm going to start sieging this down. Of course, Blue knows Red's army was on the other side of the map there. He knows he's got these 2 cannons here. And this is going to be a very, very interesting engagement indeed. He's going to try and take down that outpost. Maybe he can kill the outpost, and then any frigate he puts on that lake will be more protected. The outpost, very low hit points, but he didn't want to stand there too much longer at all, because those 2 cannons are going to blast a hole right through his musketeers there, as you can see. Both players very passive this game. You have to remember it was a tournament where $450, a lot of money on the line for these games, and they're both going to play passive because it's, I suppose, a bit safer here. Getting a nice shot off on those Abbas guns, but playing very, very passive indeed. Neither player wants to get involved straight away because they are waiting for that time. Because if 2 of these shots from a falconet hit the other falconet, then you are screwed. And, ultimately they both want to eliminate each other's falconets with their falconets, so they're both going to sit here on the back, trying to play the skirmishes on the front, taking a few shots, going to try and use the skirmishes to take on those janissaries there. You always want to keep a unit kind of on the front. Here, taking out a cannon right like that. Half hit points or less. Both cannons, 1 cannon down for each player here, but Red has got the first shot off. Looks like Blue's cannon is lower on hit points. Red definitely further ahead there. Both Blue's cannons now down. Blue in a not so good position. Red here has a half HP cannon, a huge massive janissary, some Abbas guns, and Blue, what is he looking at here? A bunch of musketeers that are now useless. There was never any cavalry anyway to defend his cannons with. These musketeers, I feel as if could have been made into skirmishers, and they would have been a better choice there. Now sending 12 pikemen for Garja. Normally you'd use your pikemen to defend the cannons or your massive skirmishes, but his massive skirmishes isn't particularly large, and he does not have any cannons. Let's switch over to Shmras and see what he's up to. 1,000 gold on the way. Absolutely disgusting. Going to send, of course, those 5 Mamelukes from his home city, and they are going to absolutely rip his opponent to shreds. Mamelukes have stupid amounts of hit points. Terribly, terribly disgusting unit here. But yes, Ottoman player, he has just won that, that engagement here. Blue now walking back. He's like, never mind, this isn't good. I'm going to have to go back to my base. Red here, he could now push in, right? He's got, he's a falconet up. He's got a nice army mass. He's now just giving time to the Spanish player to mass up skirmishes, which are good against janissaries and stuff like that. And, he perhaps is, in theory, wasting the pressure. But the other way to look at it is he has just sent 1,000 gold. 1,000 gold could be 5 Abbas guns. It could be 5 hussars. It could be a frigate. It could be anything, but it's not. It's 1,000 gold, which doesn't do anything right yet. He still has to wait to collect that coin crate up, and he has to wait for a shipment before that gold can be of any use to him. Here, a lancer coming in, perhaps going to kill that frigate there. Well, frigate? What's not a frigate? That's a falconet, but you're actually killing the lancer. 2 lancers going down, and only 1, little poke of 20 damage onto that falconet there. I don't think it was worth it. That's 400 resources worth of lancer just gone down the drain there. Absolutely. Still waiting on that next shipment for his Mamelukes before they can arrive and, of course, start to come out of his home city. And he's just going to wait for them because, since that 1,000 coin isn't a 5 Abbas gun shipment or something, then in theory he's now a military shipment behind his opponent. in terms of at least until that Mameluke shipment arrives and, you know, makes up for everything. But let's switch back to Gaia here. We see, you know, the red player Ottoman, Shmras on 23 villages. Let's switch over to Gaia. The Spanish player on 33. Definitely that 5 villager shipment coming to fruition here. Of course, the fact that Spain can train their villagers significantly quicker than Ottoman. Well, not that they train them significantly quicker. Ottoman just trains them significantly slower than any other civilization, since, of course, they are training for free. But, you know, 5 villager shipment, training them faster, market upgrades, economy starting to come to fruition here. Score is actually ahead. Gaia on 145 score to Shmras 135. That is 10 score points. That is the equivalent of 1,000 resources, which actually isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. But, you know, certainly slightly in the lead, and the longer this game goes on, the more in favour it will shift to Gaia. But at the moment, Ottoman player has a very, very scary mass, especially since Shmras is sending 5 Mamelukes, and they are almost here. And when they arrive, no doubt he will push in and wreak havoc on his opponent. So, Blue, looking like he's coming over this way, perhaps going to do some damage to that trading site there. Maybe wants to do some raiding with these lancers. Raiding with all of your lancers is questionable, but and lancers aren't that good at raiding. Hussars have, you know, 10 more hand attack, though they don't have the multipliers. Lancers certainly quite good against infantry, whereas Hussars not so. But, not so much, rather. They're still quite good against crossbowmen and things like that. But, you know, anyway, Mamelukes now on the way here, now marching in absolutely huge, massive Janissaries. You have to remember, these things have 282 hit points each. They are extremely tanky. A skirmisher only on 144 hit points, significantly less, especially when you compare the size of their army. And a lot of the units here are pikemen. That 12 pikeman shipment really not being that useful, and the only thing it's going to be good against is Mamelukes, and even then it's not going to be that good, because the Mamelukes don't have to engage the pikemen. They've got so many hit points, they can just walk away and let the Janissaries deal with, of course, the pikemen here. But a frigate now on the lake. I did kind of miss that, switching over to Gaia, see what he's got there. Rodelleros and Lancers in queue. He did indeed send that frigate, popped it onto this lake. That is an excellent defense. Really, really strong unit here. Has an absolutely insane, you can't quite see the damage, it's covered up, but believe me, it's about the same as a falconet, but it has a larger rate of fire, not quite as much area damage, and it also has an extremely strong, taking out that falconet there, using one of the attacks from the frigate on the falconet there. I think the falconet wanted to get close and do some damage. Of course, it's got crazy multipliers versus boats, but, you know, that being so low hit points from the engagement where they did have their falconets in this location, the frigate will actually eliminate that falconet quite easily, and this frigate is definitely going to buy him the time he needs for that economy to come to fruition. The only issue is that Gaia, the Spanish player, is starting to run out of animals to hunt. He's not going to be able to, you know, maintain his food income for much longer, and once the animals do run out, then that's not going to look too good. But certainly, Shmras playing very, very passively. I would have expected him to push in earlier, even, you know, before the Mamelukes came, and now that they're definitely, you know, even before the falconets. When the falconets first arrive, I expected him to come in and, you know, since he ages up faster, he could perhaps harass these houses or the barracks or something. But, you know, passive then, passive now, and passive in the future, perhaps. But, you know, it is a tournament game, perhaps trying to be, you know, a little bit safer. But putting up an outpost, going to creep in towards this lake here. Outposts have a very, very high damage against the frigate, and this is perhaps what he needs to allow himself to get into his opponent's base. The frigate there going to absolutely, you know, do a lot of damage. And he's going to need, if he wants to get around this corner, he's going to have to eliminate that boat. And having this outpost here kind of denies him the ability to have this boat in this location here. The Mamelukes coming in to do some raiding. Absolutely monstrous raiders. That is right. So that falconet now going down there. We see this is veteran Rodelleros for the Spanish player just being researched. These villagers coming back. You know, no more food for him. The only food he has now is these berries. And that's going to run out, you know, soon enough. Anyway, the positioning here doesn't look too good in the trees. It's anyway, let's take a look at Shmras. We'll switch over to him. A frigate of his own about to pop on the lake. We see he's moved the spawn point there, and this is, since of course this frigate is now at half hit points due to being shot at by random Janissaries and perhaps that falconet and perhaps this outpost, this frigate here should be able to eliminate Blue's frigate, and the defense that it's allowing him to stop these Janissaries coming in will be completely removed here. So let's take a look at this army here. There are lots of lancers, but they're not, you know, are lancers appropriate for this? They're certainly quite good against Abbas guns. They're okay against Janissaries, but you have to remember Janissaries are anti-cavalry in essence and should be able to deal with lancers accordingly. He needs skirmishers and a lot of them, but the problem with a massive skirmishers, those Mamelukes are, you know, just, they don't care. They're just going to tear through you. And the only defense he has to the Mamelukes are all these hand infantry, a couple of musketeers. Here you see now the pikemen, this massive wall coming in to kind of do damage against these Mamelukes here. But these Janissaries and the Abbas guns just going to focus down those pikemen and the Rodelleros. They have very low HP. And once these once these pikemen are all dead, there's going to be no defense against, to stop those Mamelukes from walking. And you see the Mamelukes trying to get out of there. They don't want to take any damage. But all of these pikemen still in range of the Janissaries going to take lots of damage. They're now trying to get back because there's no need for them to be there since the Mamelukes aren't on the the front threatening the skirmishers now, but the Mamelukes walking their way around the stable. All of these units out of position on the wrong side of the town centre here. The Mamelukes in combat with the skirmishers. Lots not looking too good. I'd like to see him in this little gap here with the skirmishers using the Rodelleros and the pikemen to block the Mamelukes' entry, and the skirmishers in this little passage so that there's, they're kind of protected. They're able to do lots of damage versus the Janissaries, but the mass of red units here is absolutely huge compared to blue, and a lot of blue's units are really not that useful. He's running out of skirmishers. And honestly, every time these Rodelleros and pikemen come forward to defend the skirmishers against Mamelukes, the Mamelukes just walk off and let the Janissaries and the Abyss guns destroy them. And as you can see, he's just forced to constantly walk back. He wants to kite with the skirmishers all day long, but he really can't because he has to keep walking back. He has to keep walking back, and it just looks like Red's army is... Once these Rodelleros go down, there is truly nothing to stop the Mamelukes from killing the skirmishers, and there really aren't that many skirmishers either. Up in the north of the map, we see here the frigate is now on half hit points, but it has certainly denied or killed that other frigate there, and it looks like the Mamelukes... Well, the Rodelleros here now going into combat straight up with everything, and I can tell you, you don't even have to play this game to realise that Red's army is going to take out Blue's there. You can see that Blue running out of units, and yes, Blue does have a larger economy, but it doesn't count for anything anymore, because all that's going to happen is Red walk through, destroy these houses, the barracks, the town centre, everything else, stop Blue from collecting resources. It doesn't matter how many settlers you have if they can't gather food, and of course the food was running out anyway. There's just these two berry bushes, but there we have Shmras taking the first game as Ottoman. Of course, it is a tournament grand final. To be expected that these players will be playing these crazy strong civilizations. Ottoman shining, yes, like the moon on their flag, and the stars. Wow, I'm a poet. Oh, that is fit. Yep, absolutely. So there we have it. Let's move out of the game. I am going to take a quick break, grab a glass of water, and read the Twitch chat comments, and then we will resume with game number 2 in this best of 7 series for $450. Gaia versus Shmras. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Stay tuned. I will be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second game in this best of 7 series played between Gaia and Shmras for PK Clan Tournament number 3, the grand finals. They're competing for the first and second place split in the $450 cash prize that was made available for this event. We have Gaia in the east of the map, playing in the colour red as the Spanish here. He played Spain last game. He is completely within his own right to play Spain again this game if he chooses to, and he has chosen to do that. Clearly, Spain is a strong civilization in vanilla, as I mentioned last game. I got on the fact that Spain, of course, has more experience points, or their shipments require less experience points, I should say, in the last game. But they also, what I didn't get on was the fact that they have, if I have a look through his decks, I suppose what we've got here is a 5 Lancer shipment. On Tad, that is 4 Lancers. They have a 4 Lancer shipment. On Tad, that is 3 Lancers. They also have Rodellero shipments that are just better than they are on, of course, Tad. And, I believe that Spain was just nerfed into the ground on the Asian dynasties. This is definitely a very strong civilization. This is the tournament final, and that is why Gaia has selected it here. Starting with a plantation. This is, of course, Saguenay. I quite like Saguenay as a map. We've got lots of water, and that could definitely become an element of the game, much like last game where they put frigates on the lake. And, of course, in some games, perhaps civilizations which aren't so aggressive in the Fortress Age, it can result in... he still hasn't selected a deck. They can send stuff like schooners, which allows you to, train fishing boats for cheap. But let's switch over to Shmras on the other side of the map in the colour blue. Also playing as the Spanish. Shmras won the previous game, as we know. And because of that, he has to change his civilization. He can no longer play as the Ottoman. The Ottoman... You can't play the civilization that you won the previous game with. So, next game he can play Ottoman. However, if he wins again, he won't be able to play Spain next game. It looks like he's, picked Spain for the same reasons Gaia has. It is, of course, a very strong civilization. So here we have a Spain mirror. Definitely going to be quite interesting. I don't know, people have always said mirrors aren't as interesting, but, I disagree. Mirrors can be very interesting, and they are indeed a true test of skill, I suppose. You could put it that way. If players are doing the very same things, playing the same civilizations, limited by the very same factors as each other, then, it's a true test of skill. So, you have that. You can get quite creative in this matchup, though, with a Spain mirror, with the 5 villager shipments, and, if your opponents perhaps chooses to be more aggressive in the Fortress Age and saves their villager shipments, and stuff like that. But let's talk about what could happen in this game, then. first of all, let's just quickly take a look at the map. Of course, you know, he has some decent hunts, as you can see on the mini-map. Coin mine on the front, and his Explorer and Wardog separated to scout the map. Whereas Gaia, on the other hand, is he's got his units, you know, a little closer together, I noticed earlier. He was going for what I believe to be, he went for a 90 food treasure, followed by another 90 food treasure, followed by a 60 food treasure. This guy is on fire with his food treasures, using his Wardog and his Explorer to tank some of the damage, and also at the same time, you know, keep them together so he can help him gather the treasures. Finding a settler treasure as well. Gaia finding some insane treasures. This is like 100 food every, like, every 2 minutes that the game passes. I don't know why he's training this last villager here. As you can see, got the colonial age in queue, and has, like, could have like 100 food in queue right now. But if he chosen not to train that villager, gone up perhaps with 14 villages, he could be already aging, and he could be super fast up to the next age, which leads me on nicely to talk about a strategy that Spain can do, and one that is often seen, I suppose, in the Spanish mirror. But, you know, laying down some villagers onto wood so that he can grab a trading post, of course, 250 wood for that trading post, to take a look at Shmras, and he's doing the same. They're both aging up, going for the wood there. Whilst Gaia has slowed himself down to the colonial age, it might not slow him down to the fortress ages, because he still has to. Well, actually, it might, because if it takes him longer to get up to the colonial age, it'll take him longer to send that 700 gold shipment here. Gonna go for that settler treasure, as I was saying. But yes, what can Spain do? A strategy I quite like that Spain does is, you know, they get up to colonial, they send the 700 gold, the 700 wood, as you would expect. They're going to go for their fast fortress, but instead of, you know, saving those shipments for the fortress age and saving their resources for the units in the fortress age, a lot of Spain players might actually just hit up to the next age and send the 7 Rodellero shipment that is in their deck, or on TAD you might send 8 pikemen, because of course 7 rods is actually 6 rods on TAD. But, you know, never mind that. And you send that shipment, build a barracks, and start training colonial age anti-cavalry units, such as either Rodelleros or possibly even some musketeers. And then you could perhaps train like 10 musketeers by the time that you get up to the colonial age. And you'd have your 7 Rodellero shipment. That is a decent portion of anti-cavalry. And then you can send your very first shipment in the fortress age as 2 cannons, meaning that you hit up about 7 minutes 30 with Spain to fortress, and you'd have your cannons by 8 minutes, and you'd have a sufficient amount of anti-cavalry to actually protect them with. That is definitely something that you can see happening here. Shmras is aged up, of course, with 200 gold, and his outpost, that 700 coin, now going into queue there, so he can get his fortress age in queue. This outpost now coming forward. Gaia, despite all those food treasures, now only just hitting up to, of course, the, well, whatever age is in the colonial age here, also with the 200 gold and the 700 gold now on the way, and they should probably be up to fortress at very similar times. A little bit of conflict down here with their, of course, units, but no fatalities, no one dying just yet. The outpost now coming forward. Let's take a look at this. We see Gaia placing his on next to the lake here. Definitely going to be useful with regards to protecting the ocean, and if any frigates or caravels or anything occurs on the water, this outpost is going to be very useful indeed for destroying things like that and doing damage and protecting the coast. Whereas we take a look at this one, Shmras placing his down here next to the coin mine. It's still in range of the ocean, so it's still going to be useful for the same reasons that Gaia's will be, but I think this is a nice placement actually as well. It could be closer to the water, but, you know, since it's next to this gold mine, he can collect here if he ever needs to later on in the game. This could be used as a, you know, a place to garrison units should he need to, and things like that. Now, what I'm interested in seeing is when their next shipment becomes available, and whether or not they will actually opt to send something like 7 Rodelleros, or perhaps even 5 villages. It is possible. We'll see what they intend to do. Or they could just save it and not send anything and hit up to the fortress age a bit later on. But by the looks of it, where's Gaia? Yeah, he's Explorer, low hit point. He's trained to a second War Dog, though. He's actually got 3 War Dogs out, so this is fairly interesting. I would say, actually, that's going to slow him down to the Fortress Age. He's, of course, now going up to the next age, and actually, these, you know, 75 food each, these could have slowed him down a bit, but then again, he did find a lot of food treasures, so perhaps this is, you know, he's going to allow him to do that, and he can train these War Dogs, and here we see the War Dog's going to come and kill off that Tomahawk there. One of the War Dogs going down, but I believe here, you know, 2 War Dogs versus a, you know, 2/3 HP Explorer. I'd actually say the War Dogs will win that. We'll see what happens, though, but Gaia definitely going to be sending those Rodelleros, looking to be super aggressive by the looks of it. Heading down that barracks now that the 700 wood has arrived. This is going to be very interesting when the fight actually gets going, when they get their units out. And of course, the micro starts to happen and the conflict. And since they're going to be having very similar, or almost the same composition, almost the same number of units, it is going to be entirely down to micro in those few moments of battle where it's all going to be happening. But yeah, we'll take Shmras. 7 Rodellas on the way now, training 5 war dogs. This is interesting. Perhaps he's going to use those in addition to as anti-cavalry, perhaps. But then switching over to Gaia, he training some musketeers now. He's definitely whereas the Shmras barracks is forward, whereas the red one is not. So actually musketeers now in queue sooner than blues will be, and perhaps because of that, I don't know what I was going to say there, but all of these, he's now got the 7 Rodellos here, he's got his 5 war dogs, and he's got his explorer here. We see red doesn't have quite as many war dogs. He could still train some. 5 musketeers going to pop out though, but by the looks of it, all these units here could overwhelm the red ones here and do a lot of damage. But 5 musketeers popping out just in time, going to engage, and of course here red is now going to pursue, because here musketeers, they do range damage, whereas your Rodello resists 40%. That is quite a lot, 40% of melee damage. So any range damage it does is pure. It's untainted, just pure up straight damage here, and I don't think he wants to get engaged with those musketeers. But now that 5 musketeers of his own, since of course he built the barracks forward, whereas Gaia did not, his musketeers are a little bit late. But here the engagement now going to happen. All of these units of course fighting each other in a melee there, looking for the weak Rodellos, going to try and kill off the weak ones. He's got more war dogs, I believe, and these musketeers here ought to be focusing down the Rodellos, which of course have no ranged resist, and the musketeer is going to kill them off. And here we see actually that blue, by the looks of it, won the melee in the middle and still has his 5 musks there. Both players have their 5 musks. But here these, certainly the war dogs and the Rodellos he had from the colonial age shipping those are going to be able to take on these musketeers here. Some pikemen in the middle here fighting. They both aged up with the 8 pikemen shipment by the looks of it. Of course, lots of anti-cavalry to protect that first shipment of his. Gaia hasn't sent a first shipment here. This isn't too good because he needs those units soon. Otherwise, blue, let's switch over to Shmras here. This fight's still going on, but he's sending 5 lancers here. He's not going to opt for those 2 cannons. Has decided that instead, perhaps due to this melee that they just had, this fight, that he does not have enough anti-cavalry to protect his 2 cannons, and has decided to send something that doesn't need quite as much as protection. 5 lancers here. These 5 lancers are going to arrive sooner than Gaia's. Take a look, Gaia. Oh, actually, they're not that far behind, come to think of it. I was going to say that Gaia, well, they are actually quite similar in time. I mean, Blue's units will arrive slightly sooner, but Gaia's not actually that far behind. And I thought if they were going to be late, then these lancers could rush in, take out all of these, some of these musketeers before anything even happens, before those lancers even arrive. And that wouldn't be too good for him. That would definitely put him behind. Just a silly thing, forgetting to send that shipment there. But switching back to Shmras, see what he's up to. 2 cannons now on the way. He has cancelled the 5 Lancer shipment and is instead going for his 2 cannons. He has decided that at first, maybe he didn't have the anti-cavalry to protect cannons. But, now has decided that maybe after winning that conflict, he does indeed have enough anti-cavalry here to protect his falconets. And since, of course, he won the melee in the middle and all of that stuff. But now that he has cancelled his lancers, definitely Red's lancers are very much here. He's got some skirmishers and some musketeers. And looking at this army right here, let's switch over to Gaia and see what he's got. 4 lancers on the way as well. All of these lancers, the skirmishers, the musketeers, they could come forward and they would be able to deal with what is here. Those cannons definitely, up against the lancers there, and the skirmishers are vulnerable if he can get through these. Perhaps sending the cannons was a mistake, especially if the 4 lancers arrive. Once those 4 lancers has arrived, he'll be 2 shipments up over his, 1 shipment up over his opponent. And look, that is 9 lancers is a lot, and now he's going to, is he going to come forward? I think he's going to come forward. I think he's going to engage here. That doesn't look too good. He can see, of course, at the outpost, Shmras can see. We'll switch over to him, and we see he's got 9 Rodellos on the way. He needs those right now, though. Otherwise, these lancers are going to come in and absolutely shred all of these infantry apart, especially since there's skirmishers there, and these cannons are extremely vulnerable. Taking out villages, though, this isn't what he needs to be doing. I don't think he's aware that he has this advantage, that, of course, the cannons were late. How would he know that the cannons, he was sending lancers and they were cancelled and stuff like that? The lancers going to come in, going to try and kill off these cannons here, but they're going in. They've gone in too deep. The Rodello is popping out of the tower on the wrong side, coming around, though, going to get into combat with these lancers, but I think, instead of running away when he could have done, he stayed. Why? He's caught the game right there. Why? It's really, I suppose, losing all of his lancers really early there, and I think what he needs, that was the wrong call. He saw that perhaps the cannons were not quite as well guarded as they ought to have been, since the musketeers weren't there and there weren't enough of them. And the Rodellos popped out on the wrong side at this tower, and they needed to get in here, and they were walking towards the cannons to kill off the lancers that were threatening the cannons. But instead of He needs to get back and save the Lancers, because Rodelleros, of course, have times like 3, they do like 12 damage times 3.5 versus cavalry, and he's just taking out all of those cavalry. And as you can see at this point in the game, he has a very large army, Shmras, absolutely. And Red only looking at his two Lancers. There's 2 skirmishers there, switching back to Gaia. Doesn't have anything on the way either. And perhaps he did call it a bit early. That was rather, just 10 minutes into the game, he lost his... I mean, that does put him very far behind, having lost those 2 Lancers. But, it's not totally over, because his economy's still able to collect food. Though his hunts are running out. As you can see, this moose is definitely low. He's running out of food. Blue certainly has still got his deer over here. But, yeah, running out of food. Perhaps that's why he decided to quit as well. He hadn't got any food. And, of course, Blue had map control over this, and any other hunts that he might have wanted to collect from. So I can see that, but his villagers were still alive is the point I'm trying to make there, and perhaps he did call it a bit early. But there is that. Game number 2. A second win to Shmras. Gaia now 2 points down in this best of 7. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I will be right back in a moment. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 3rd game in this best of 7 series between Gaia and Shmras, both competing for a 1st and 2nd place split in the $450 cash prize that was made available for this tournament. This is PK Clan Tournament 3, if I have not said so already, for the benefit of the people on YouTube, that is, and anyone else who is just tuning into the stream, I suppose. Here we have Shmras. No, we do not. We have Gaia, also starting on the west of the map. No, he's not. This is the east of the map. I need to learn northwest, east, and south, and in the correct order. Gaia, yes, in the east of the map. Playing as the French on the map Bayou. This is an interesting map, and Spain and Ottoman, not actually as good here. There are no trading sites to build on this map, therefore he has picked, France, which is, definitely a strong civilization, by no means the strongest. It was never the strongest in vanilla, it was never the strongest in TAD. It has always been reasonably well balanced, I would say, but certainly a better civilization to be playing on a map where there is no trading posts. Or water, since France don't take water. So there is that, playing on Bayou. Let's switch over to, we have Shmras in the east of the map. No, the west of the map. Wow, I keep getting this wrong. Also playing as the French for similar reasons, I suppose, as Gaia. So we have another mirror, and there is potential here for them to do things differently to each other. I mean, in the Spain game, they both played very tight build orders that did very, very similar things, and the only reason they really changed what they were doing was due to the fact of things happening in the game, but essentially the same build. In this game, there is definitely potential to do things differently. We see here Shmras building a market. He's gone for that early market there, and is, by the looks of it, already got his hunting dogs, and is now waiting to get 100 wood in his inventory so he can lay down a house, and then these villagers will return to collecting food. Really, really nice there. Just getting the 120 food he needed to queue another villager just as that final villager was made. And I don't know if that was luck, but perhaps it was just some really good macro there. We now have 100 wood that he'll need for the house, and I'm sure these villagers will switch back to food any moment now. There we have it. So, Gaia are going to be doing something very similar, I would imagine. Yes, he's also got a market up now, sending his 3 Carrera de Bois shipment, which is pretty good. Going for 160 wood treasure over here. This map is all about this treasure, I must admit. There are a bunch of really bad treasures on this map. 160 wood is among the better ones of them, as you can see here, being targeted by his opponent's scout and the alligator and a native scout, and it looks like that maybe he's going to lose his explorer here. Hasn't been creeping that the best he could, and has lost a reasonable amount of hit points to that native scout here. Going to try and take out the rest of the hit points on the alligator with his native scout alone, but actually decided that's not a good idea. The alligator is too strong, would kill his scout, and also the blue scout there might actually kill his own scout as well, and then he'd be a scout down as well as his explorer. He definitely needs to keep that scout alive, because he no longer has an explorer to scout with, and we'll switch over to Shmras and see where his explorer is. Yes, now going to go in and finish off that treasure. Going to grab himself 160 wood that Gaia rightfully found first and was aiming to collect up, but has been denied that. Losing his explorer, perhaps a little unfortunate, but at the same time, he should have seen that coming, really, and lost his explorer there. He needs to keep the scout alive so he can go and collect it at a later time, because of course that explorer will not stand up until he has 100 hit points and until there is a unit on his team standing next to him. So 160 wood in his inventory there. Let's take a look at the other treasures on the map, I suppose. 10 coin down the bottom there. 360 XP, which is really, really over-guarded. And you can see why I mentioned that, 20 coin there, that the 160 wood treasure is actually quite good, or the 100 wood treasure over here, because every other treasure on this map is over-guarded and also not actually that good. So, yes, there is that. But let's take a look at the civilizations. They're, of course, both about to age up. They're both be on similar food counts. And let's think about what they can do on this map. There are two things that I expect them to, that they could do. It'd be nice to, Gangsaw now going up, and, well, anyway, that's not the point. But he could Musk Huss. That is a very, very, I would say standard build that France can do. They build as soon as they hit up to the colonial age. Of course, going up with 400 wood. 200 wood can be spent on a stable. 200 wood can be built on a barracks, and you get, say, 3 or 4 cavalry units out. You can run around the map raiding whilst you're massing musketeers, and if you require more cavalry, then you have a stable and you have a barracks. You can train whichever unit you like, and you can add in another barracks if you want to go double musk and you have no intention of making hussars, but you've always got the option to do so. You've got both those production facilities. There is one option that they can do, and it is, quite effective, since, of course, French villages, they have a lot of hit points, and they have a 40% ranged resist, or is it 30? I think it's 40% ranged resist, and that means that melee damage is straight up pure, and that will rip, hussars will shred through a Carrera de Bois. Actually, Carreras are weaker than regular villagers versus hussars, which is interesting enough. We see, though, that there is a decent amount of food in Gaia's base. He's got a turkey herd, or flock, should I say. Of course, they are birds, and a deer herd, and some berries on the back, which is quite nice. And the berries aren't so good for Shmras. They're kind of on the front, but he has only got one hunt in his base. The other is down here, and there is kind of one in the mid-map, some turkeys there. So, the other option that can happen is, if we switch over to Shmras, we'll take a look at what he's doing. Lots of villagers in queue there. Has the wood he needs for steel traps. Of course, he's always had that from the 160 wood there. Switching back to Gaia. Looks like he's going to go for some sort of crossbow pike composition, I think. Judging by the amount of wood that he has. Does he have any forward villagers? Not over here. Is this a villager? Yeah, he's got 2 villagers on the front here. This is the other option that France have. If, you can crossbow pike rush France. It's not that great because, of course, Carreras, as I said, have a 40% ranged resist, and crossbowmen, therefore, are quite weak against Carreras for that reason, especially because of the hit points and the resist. But since, Shmras, I think what Guy has done here is identified that Shmras' hunts, his herds, aren't very good. He's, got no food in his base now, and the only other hunt is this one, which he's trying to bring back to his base. He's also got the turkeys here. Then, they're quite far away. He doesn't have very good food. And the crossbow pike rush is very, very aggressive. It's very, very efficient because all of your villagers are collecting nothing but food, which is the fastest gathering resource. You do have some on wood, but, you do need some on wood, of course, to train the units. And then all of the wood required for the units comes out of the wood shipments, which isn't ideal because wood is is a slow gathering resource, and usually you want to spend wood on things that are more economic. But using it for aggression is definitely very efficient in terms of all of your villagers collecting food, and you can train a lot of units very quickly. And pikemen and crossbowmen are very specialized. Pikemen being very, very strong anti-cavalry units. They're also quite good against buildings, meaning the early pressure. They're very useful for damaging buildings and stuff like that. And crossbowmen, of course, are very strong against musketeers with their multipliers, but Musk Huss is a stronger combination, especially against crossbow pike. But in the early portion of the game, these very specialized units should be able to do really, really well. These pikemen here might be able to take out a villager. Ideally not that great. You don't really want to be raiding with pikemen, but here, going to come in. We see that if we switch over to Shmras, he is going for that Musk Huss composition that I was talking about earlier. Once he, 5 musketeers very strong against the pikemen there. And providing he keeps the hussars away from the pikemen, the hussars will be very strong against those crossbowmen that will come out. We can see here that these pikemen trying to bring down, of course, that barracks there and do as much damage as they can early on. But now losing a couple of pikemen as he tries to retreat here. We see that actually the hussars going to try and engage those pikemen here. This isn't a weird thing. It looks quite weird because, of course, hussars are countered by, but he's trying to slow them down. And in theory, if a hussar is dealing damage, it's actually good against everything. It does 30 damage to anything, irrespective of what it is. So it's actually good against everything. The only time it's bad is when it's being dealt damage to by, say, a pikeman that has a ×5 multiplier there. So doing damage against the pikeman was actually quite effective. If the pikemen turned around and started to try and harass the hussars would just run away as fast as they could backwards, and that would mean that the pikemen were not running in the opposite direction away from the musketeers, and the musketeers could do some damage. But now we see the 10 crossbowmen pop out from Gaia. We'll switch over to him. His shipment's order has been 700 wood, 600 wood, converting this all into military units. Those pikemen, of course, going to be overwhelmed by the hussars and cavalry, which are perhaps a stronger combination. But now that so many more units have joined, Since, of course, he's crossbowman here, he can now press back. We can see here, though, that he has, of course, actually trained some crossbowmen of his own. He's called his Minutemen, which is interesting. They're quite far away from his town. But if he can engage, of course, you know, slow these units down. He's using his Explorer, has a lot of hit points, put it in hand mode to slow his opponent's units down. And you can see that crossbowman that was being targeted, taken away from the group, so the rest of them can escape. Because, of course, if one unit is in hand combat, it slows the group down. Trying to use the Hussars now to slow them down, get in combat with those crossbowmen. The pikemen are going to come forward, going to try and scare off those Hussars. The Hussars now going to run away there. But you can see the pikemen closer to the crossbowmen and the Minutemen and the Musketeers that are mixed in there, and that's what they're trying to focus down. Once those pikemen have been eliminated, yes, they're really strong against cavalry, very specialized, but once they're all gone, since they, you know, they do have quite low hit points, those Hussars will be free to absolutely shred through these crossbowmen here. And actually, this Musk-Huss defense has been really good. The crossbow pike was trying to be very aggressive, but as you can see here, combined with the Minutemen and these units, he's managed to push him back, and now that only since 10 more crossbowmen has popped out, he's able to force Blue back. But Blue no longer has any, any Minutemen to send. Let's take a look at Shmras, and, well, we see Garja now sending 8 crossbowmen from his home city, going to keep up with the pressure here. I would have thought he would go, I think he was sending 4 Carreras, but he deleted them, and he's actually decided that he's going to go for this all-in kind of, well, not all-in pressure, but certainly a very strong pressure. At this point in the game, it might be worth, you know, spending 200 wood perhaps on a stable and switching to Musketeers and Hussars as your composition, which, of course, are a better combination. It will counter crossbow pike in the long run, of course, though, but he's going to send the 8 crossbowmen instead, and just keep massing crossbow pike to keep this pressure up. And is that the right decision, though? Of course, you see Blue has managed to defend it. Switch back to Shmras and see what he's got. 8 crossbowmen now on the way, going to try and defend this, but this red mass looks like it's going to be able to take down that barracks, and until, of course, some reinforcements arrive. 3 Hussars now popping out, 8 crossbowmen going to come out as well from the home city there. Anyway, I was saying that, you know, Garja at this point in the game could have built a stable and switched into Hussar and Musketeer and sent 4 Carreras instead of 8 crossbowmen and gone for a more economic route, because at this point in the game, if he's going to be sending 8 crossbowmen, he needs to have, you know, complete control, map control over these hunts, and kind of force his opponent's villagers off them, and use the 8 crossbowmen to keep doing that and keep that up. We see more units on the way now, those 8 crossbowmen he sent earlier arriving into the fight here. We see, though, that actually Shmras has switched to crossbowman himself. He's not going for the Musketeer-Hussar combination. I suppose largely because Musketeers are countered by crossbowmen, but yeah, not so many Hussars involved now. He's choosing not to train quite as many, and in response, Garja not going to train quite as many pikemen since he no longer needs them. But still, going to just keep on going with this, just these crossbow pikes. Isn't going to switch up his unit composition. 4 villagers now on the way to perhaps try and to get his economy going a bit better. I believe he would have researched steel traps, or perhaps, I don't know if he's got steel traps. It's difficult when you're crossbow pike rush to find 125 gold at the very start of the game for steel traps, and of course that's when you want to get it, as soon as you hit up to colonial. But if you do get it, then you sacrifice the initial power of your pressure from those initial batch of units that you get out, and he might not have steel traps yet at this point. Certainly pop capped and only just managing to get up his wood, and has a lot of food and not so mumuch wood. So actually his you know, his macro, the units of resources he's collecting, is kind of difficult to get units out because he needs more wood than he has food. But yeah, so switch back to Shmras. Now sending 3 Hussars. Blue now coming in. Perhaps I would say that Garja's the red here, the red Garja's mass is larger. Or actually perhaps not. 3 Hussars now on the way from Shmras. And perhaps trying to lure him back instead of pressuring out with his blue units. Is actually going to sit in his base and wait for Red to come to him. And when Red does come to him, perhaps he'll trap him in a position with the 3 Hussars there and the Hussars that he already has. And since there aren't, well, more pikemen being added in, but since there weren't so many pikemen, he'd be able to catch him out in that position, out of position there. But Garja not going to engage there. Can see that he doesn't have a, you know, not going to go in there just yet. Switching over to Garja and see what he's got. Just going to continue crossbow pike all day long. These players just going straight up crossbow pike, and no, you know, both being very passive. They're not going to try and engage each other just yet. Just very small passive engage. Perhaps this, though, will be the, you know, the big fight where it all starts to happen. Lots of Hussars there, or a few that he's managed to train from the 3 Hussar shipment, and of course train some as well. There's pikemen coming forward to defend against the Hussars there, but now getting back since there's no need for them to be on the front. They don't want to take damage from those crossbowmen. 4 or 5 units from each barracks here about to pop out and going to be very useful in this fight here. Pikemen now coming forward to fight off these cavalry. The cavalry going to run away, though. Those crossbowmen, you can see the crossbowmen trying to focus down units that are close to them, but primarily the pikemen here. Those cavalry now coming around the other side, making Gaia move his pikemen around a lot. And as you can see, I think actually it's very even. I must say, I really can't see who's winning this fight. I think blue might actually be. As you can see, those pikemen now going into stagger mode, so they take less damage from ranged attacks. But ranged attacks going to be used for tanking more so than pressuring. Or defending, I suppose, against the cavalry. But yeah, blue definitely starting to make a larger mass here. They both stayed on crossbow, but I would have expected people to start mixing in more hussars than he actually did. Now sending 700 gold. Perhaps he's thinking about aging up now. Gaia, or no, he's under a lot of pressure, so perhaps not. No, 3 hussars coming out. Maybe that 700 gold would be used for making hussars, of course. That is stable, but he doesn't have one just yet. And instead, he's not going to send 700 gold. He's going to say 3 hussars, which is going to be useful for dealing with crossbowmen and ultimately just add to his mass. You can see here, neither player are going to continue that fight. I think here what Shmras is doing, he does have a larger army, and he could pressure that, but if 5 hussars appeared out of nowhere, he doesn't know, I suppose, if Gaia has a stable, but if he did have a stable and 5 hussars were trained, then these crossbowmen would be very, very vulnerable that far out of position, so it's perhaps safer to bring them back now. But let's switch over to Shmras. 4 villagers now on the way. He has a 24 villager economy. He will have a 28 villager economy once these units arrive. But Gaia on 32. So Gaia, he has had that 4 villager shipment longer than Shmras. And for that reason, his economy will be growing faster, and he should be able to make more units. Of course, though, if he loses them in the fights, perhaps his opponent out-micros him, then that economy might not mean so much. But ultimately, since he has a stronger economy, has had those 4 villager shipment on the field longer, he will be able to mass up more units, and ultimately perhaps take blue out at this stage in the game. Very even all game long. Anything could happen. Let's take a look at the food that they have available to him. Blue's starting to run out here. He's got his berries, but chooses not to collect them since they are slower gathering food source than hunts. And he's going to start to bring these out. He does have control of this map in this area. Of course, raiding is something he does need to be concerned about, but ultimately his army is nearby. They are next to a barracks. Also, Blue is starting to gather food down there. He's got his berries. How much food does Blue really have, though? These ran out of food just here. Let's take it. There's a fight going on. Lots of cavalry being added in. There is a decent portion of cavalry there. Gaia has some pikemen in queue, but they're not here just yet. He should be able to get those out just in time before these cavalry engage those crossbowmen, though. But if those cavalry were attacking those crossbows right now, then he could get quite a lot of damage done since there's no anti-cavalry there to protect him. Gaia now sending Spice Trade. This is an interesting card. It is going to improve his economy even further, but at the same time, there aren't that many hunts left on the map. So we'll see how useful it will be. Once the hunts run out, that card basically disappears from... It's no longer a useful card if you can't hunt. But now the pikemen are here. He should be safe from those cavalry. There was an opportunity there for Shmras to engage, but he perhaps didn't realise that he had it. Maybe he didn't, Of course, we can see the entire map. This is Guy's point of view. We'll switch over to Shmras, I suppose, and see any cards that he's sending. But still playing very passively. I think the player who has access to more huntable animals right now is winning. Because see the scores are literally 121 and 122, 1 point different. That's 100 resources on the battlefield different. Blue collecting down here. This is pretty dangerous, actually. There's no real... I wouldn't say he has any presence in the map down here, but he's still going to choose to collect them. We'll switch over to Gaia and see the Fog of War. He can see... Oh, they've just moved off into the black. He hasn't scouted that little portion of the map there. He now no longer knows if anything's being gathered there. But if you can see the animals dead on the floor, you know something's being collected there. But actually, very safe. Taking the risk and it's paying off. His hunts... He does have this over here, but Gaia kind of has control of this area, I suppose. He can force his opponent off those hunts there. Anyway, very, very even. I do keep saying that, and that is because it is just so even. Just going to constantly mass crossbow pike the entire game. I honestly would have expected them to switch into, crossbow hussar, which is exactly what Shmras is doing, or even... look to age up at some point and perhaps get out those age 3 units. You get your access to your cannons. Neither player perhaps feeling that they have the opportunity to age up. Of course, if you're going to age up, you sacrifice a shipment to the age up because 700 coin is basically not a 3 hussar or an 8 crossbowman shipment that you could use to keep the pressure up. And, not finding the opportunity to go up. And if they did go up, then perhaps would be a little bit vulnerable. They'd hit up, or if the opponent came in whilst they were aging, then they might lose a production facility or something like that. Anyway, 36 villagers to the red player. Oh, actually, there's a raid going on down here. How did I not notice this? 3 cavalry attacking these, of course, Carreras, and, cavalry of the blue player coming in to meet that. Of course, a very large mass here. We've got 49 crossbowmen there. 48 crossbowmen. I'll switch over to Shmras and see exactly how many he has. Only 29, so Red definitely further ahead in terms of mass here, though he does have a large, quantity of Hussars down the south here, which are away from his army. And if the Hussars were up here, they could do a significant amount of damage to this crossbowman mass. So actually, in terms of composition, I'd say Blue has a better composition. The units are not in the right area, though Red does have some pikemen to defend against anything that, might go wrong there. Just going to chase these 3 cavalry all around the map. So actually, whilst that's happening, I think, whilst these cavalry are chasing these 3 Hussars, Red could push in with this army, since he knows that he has more crossbowmen, and these Hussars are away. But then again, perhaps he's fearing that these Hussars will return to the crossbow mass, and will threaten his units here, because as we can see, Garja has mixed in, some more, oh no, does he? Well, I thought I saw some more pikemen in queue, perhaps that was Shmras, though. Anyway, those Hussars now are going down. By the looks of it, Shmras, has 13 Hussars. That is a lot. And there aren't actually that many pikemen there to defend this. So really, I actually think Shmras has the edge here. If any engagement were to happen, it looks like, coming forward here, well, actually, there's a lot of crossbowmen there, but still. It is very even. 700 coin now being sent from Shmras. Perhaps he intends to use this to age up. But then again, he has a lot of coin coming in, not that much food. Unit production is going to come to a halt if he's not too careful. Those crossbowmen on the front there, going to try and do some damage to the Hussars, but taking a lot of shots, of course, from the crossbowmen. And there are a lot of villagers involved here. Perhaps they should get involved in the fight. They've got 243 HP, a decent hand attack, and they shouldn't be used for aggression, but since they're there, they can actually be used for defense. They can tank a lot of damage. If any of the villagers take damage, that means military units aren't taking damage, and they're basically sponging up the damage. Here, the cavalry going down, well, actually, I think he lost a sizable amount of cavalry, but he traded them off for the pikemen there. But actually, all the Hussars and all the pikemen kind of neutralizing each other, and now it is just crossbow versus crossbow mass. And by the looks of it, Garja is in the lead. He's taken a slight score lead. We see Shmras on 33 villagers, though more Hussars now going to come in. There aren't any crossbowmen here to protect, any pikemen here to protect him, but that crossbow mass should be able to deal with those Hussars. But still, in terms of cost efficiency, this is good for Shmras that their Hussars are able to actually do damage here and there aren't any pikemen. But I think, that advantage, that massive crossbowman advantage, has now been neutralized by those 5 Hussars nicely popping out on time. I think Garja does need some more pikemen in queue, but still just going to mass nothing but crossbows. You can see here that I think Blue is starting to run out of food. Anyway, 41 villagers to Garja, 700 food on the way. 700 food is not a great shipment, but he's going to allow him to just keep on massing. That's all he wants to do is just mass all day long. But yes, 41 villagers to Garja. Shmras on 33. You can see Garja really taking a lead. Whether it's macro, the guy is better at keeping the settlers in production, or perhaps Shmras has lost a few to the raids, which we saw. Garja is definitely ahead at this point in time. Not by a huge amount, but he is ahead, and that is going to scale the longer the game goes on, because of course he has villagers, whereas his opponent does not. 5 Hussars being added in from Shmras. Still no pikemen here to defend him with. I think if Shmras can get a decent portion of Hussars up, then he should be okay. But at this point in the game, there's such a large mass of crossbowmen. The 5 Hussars isn't going to make a tremendous amount of difference anyway. Anyway, there are these villagers down here. Let's take a look at Guy's line of sight. I'm surprised that these weren't... Yeah, you can't actually see them there. Anyway, is there a fight going on? Not quite yet. If we click on this turkey, the food is going down very quickly, so he knows there are units there if he cared to check. Turn the fog of war off. Placer mines now only just started to be researched. This entire game, 18 minutes and 20 seconds, Garja has collected nothing but food and wood. And he's now only just starting to think about perhaps getting some gold in his production to actually train some units that cost gold, maybe some Hussars or Musketeers. And take a look at Shmras. We'll switch over to him. I think at this point, Garja is ahead. Shmras is on the defensive here. And if Garja were to come in with his large, massive units, which I think he is preparing to do, then he would be able to perhaps force down this barracks. Thing is, though, crossbowmen don't have a lot of siege, so even with this large mass, how much damage can he truly do? These units here, some blue Hussars, perhaps trying to do some raiding, of course, coming this way. I don't know if they managed to kill any villagers. 35 to Shmras, Garja on 43, so that gap's still there. A 30-point lead almost to Garja. That's 3,000 resources of units on the battlefield, or in his inventory, or being researched, or being created, something like that. A little bit of engagement down here with these two groups of cavalry. Get a fight here. You can see here moving the units, selecting the unit that's being focused down by the cavalry and running it around so the units follow. But here more cavalry coming into this fight here. Now Red is outnumbered, and since he's been caught, since your units move slower when they're in hand combat, he can't actually escape there, and he's going to lose some hussars. Does have a large mass of crossbowmen. There's a decent portion of hussars there. He needs some sort of anti-cavalry. Perhaps start adding in some musketeers. Musketeers would be, I think, better at this point in game than pikemen, since musketeers are still really good against cavalry, and when they're not doing damage against cavalry, they don't have to walk back like cavalry, like the pikemen always do. They can stand there and do a 23 ranged attack, which is actually quite good. So musketeer pike would actually be quite nice at this point, but still going to go with the musketeers. Of course, is a much more convenient. With the pikemen, which is a much more convenient unit to make. It costs just food and wood, which is the resources he's been collecting all game long. Cavalry now being trained as well, of course, only just got his place in mind as we saw, starting to add in some cavalry here. These are going to be useful against his opponent's crossbowmen. Let's switch over to Shmras, see what he's up to. Shipment is available, but he literally does not have anything to send. He is out of shipments. He needs to go up to the Fortress Age should he want to send any more shipments. And this is going to start getting him behind even further, because if you can't spend your shipments, it's like 700 resources you're just not allowing yourself to have. Though shipments at this point in the game might not mean as much as they did earlier on, because shipment stays at the same value throughout the entire game, and you actually get them slower as the game goes on. So 700 resources might not be a huge deal for him, but it's still something he's not getting. Gaia, 700 coin now on the way. Perhaps going to use that to transform it into units. Here's, of course, colonial art. His colonial cards. He has more colonial cards in there, whereas I think Shmras had some factories and stuff like that in the industrial age. Just take a quick look in a moment. But here we see these cavalry taking a few damage from pikemen. It's not too good. A very large army. Red now coming down to the south here. Going to start to take out these Carrera de Bois. They're definitely caught out of position. This is the risk he took gathering all this way over here, but he had to take it. There was no food. He's been playing on a map that does not have a lot of food, and he's starting to lose a lot of villages here, and Red is definitely going to do quite well. But Blue actually converging on Red villages on this side on the gold mine. These ones out of position as well, trading some villages off each other. Both players think that they're, the Red thought he was, yeah, I've got some villages, I'm in the lead, definitely, now I'm going to win, but now actually losing his own villages, bringing some cavalry forward to force, pikemen forward to force back those cavalry, actually managing to salvage more of his villages than Blue did. Turn on Guy's Fog of War. He could walk down to this coin mine, he doesn't know anything's there, he could find those and kill those villagers off. We'll compare their villager counts in just a moment. Villagers going down on this side of the map. The score is in Gaia's favour. He is winning with regards to the amount of stuff he has on the game field. He has more units. The only difference, the only thing Shmras really has going for him at this point is his composition. It's definitely more well equipped. Hussar and Crossbowman is going to beat Crossbowman. I'm surprised that perhaps he isn't adding in enough Hussar. He perhaps needs more of them. But yeah, anyway, Gaia has a lot of coin, due to perhaps that 700 gold shipment, and the lack of food on the map now. Like, where does he gather food? He's got berries here, but, they're not going to last. You can't have too many people on them, and he's just going to have to put his villagers to do something. He'd rather be collecting food, but he's unfortunately going to have to collect gold at this point. He could buy some resources with the gold. It's not that efficient. If he gets up to Fortress, he could spend this gold on mercenary shipments. He does have... Well, he actually doesn't have any mercenary shipments. I was going to say Swiss pikemen. You get 12 Swiss pikemen for 1,000 gold, or you get Jaegers, or... I don't know if France have Black Riders, but you know what I mean. You can also transform this gold into a cannons if he goes up fast to the next stage with the Exiled Prince, gets an artillery foundry down. That would definitely be quite strong against these crossbowmen, and then he could mass perhaps dragoons, or at these two barracks, since he doesn't only have one, he only has one stable, he could mass musketeers. Here, though, a lot of crossbowmen here, an absolutely tremendous amount of crossbowmen. In terms of resources, I think Gaia has more units there, but there are a lot of hussars here, and hussars are super effective against crossbowmen. They'll be able to take those out. There really aren't that many pikemen here, and actually, by the looks of it, Shmras might be able to take out this army with just those pikemen now coming in and hussars of his own. He's going to have to get out of there, and I think, these hussars and these pikemen of Red were out of position, but now just arriving just in time to force those cavalry back, and now he has reclaimed his position as being the leader here. Those pikemen coming forward, he's put them in stagger mode, or has he? I'm not quite sure, but those cavalry definitely on the front to try and take some damage. The pikemen, they're going to soak up some damage, especially if they're in stagger mode. You can see how the guy has managed to fix his resource scheme. 29 villages on food, 1 on gold, and 10 idle villages. I'm sure he'll find something to do with them in the moment, but he's in the middle of a fight. I'm sure he's focusing on the micro here more so than actually on his villages. And here there are only a few cavalry units left. They'll go down pretty quick. They're not really going to threaten him too much. Switching over to Shmras, does he have anything on the way? 2 shipments stacked up, almost 3. Can't spend them, he's not in the Fortress Age. Getting up to the Fortress Age would have been really good if he could get to the Fortress Age, that 2 cannon shipment, and also access to 3 cuirassiers and just other Fortress Age military shipments. And Fortress Age military out, of course, the production facilities would have been really good this game, but I think neither player really finding the opportunity. They didn't want to go up, because if they did, then that'd leave them vulnerable and perhaps they wouldn't be able to defend it. But ultimately here, Gaia's deck being better equipped for the colonial age, and that is where the majority, or almost the entire of the, well, yeah, literally the entire of the game, aside from those few minutes in the Discovery Age, has occurred. And you can see here that Gaia, his settler lead, Shmras on 37 villagers, Gaia on 45. Despite both of them losing some, he's still ahead, and he's still got, you know, a large mass advantage here, and Shmras realizes that. He calls the game right there, and that is the end of it. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. That concludes game number 3 in this best of 7 series between Gaia and Shmras for $450. This is PK Clan Tournament 3, the Grand Finals. Don't go anywhere, I will be right back with game number 4. The current score is 2 to Gaia. No, ignore that. The current score is 2 to Shmras, the blue player. Blue is on 2 points. Red has just won his first point. This was his first victory in this series so far. A nice win of the French there. Certainly a very interesting game. Very balanced all game long. That is what I like to see when I play Age of Empires 3. Games like that go on for between 20 and 25 minutes. That is the optimal period of time for a game, in my opinion. And that was great. So I'm going to go and read the Twitch chat. Maybe I'll refill my glass of water. And I'm now going to read the Twitch chat, as I said. Thank you very much for watching. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the New World. Today, this is game number 4 in a best of 7 series between Gaia and Shmras. Both competing, of course, for a split first and second place split in the $450 cash prize that was made available for this event. Here we have Gaia in the east of the map, in the color red, playing as the Spanish for this game. Of course, in the previous game they both played French, so they have essentially reset their civilizations, sort of. Because, well, you can't play the civilization you just won the game with. Of course, he won the game in the previous match, but has no intention of playing. He probably didn't want to play France for this game anyway, because, of course, in the previous game there were no trading posts, meaning that Spain and Ottoman weren't quite as good. But now that they do have trading posts and we're on maps like this again, Spain is his civilization of choice. Spain is a very strong civilization on vanilla, especially on this map. There are an absolute ton of treasures. 80 food here. We also have 90 gold. Over here we've got Carrera de Bois, which looks like he's what he's aiming to go and get. He's just trained an extra war dog to help him get it. Of course, he can afford to do that, because every 2 minutes a settler will generate 100 food. And a Carrera de Bois will generate more than that. So, you know, he'll have 2 minutes with the Carrera de Bois, and that will have paid the war dog cost. And of course, the war dogs that Spain have access to, you begin the game with 1, and you can train them for 75 food, as I said. Very strong at killing treasure guardians. They have, I believe, multipliers versus treasure guardians. And he will be able to grab himself lots of treasures for free. And as I said, there are lots of decent treasures on this map. 150 gold, 2 Carreras down there. We've also got 150 food, or, just stuff like that. Shmras, though, in the south of the map, in the colour blue, playing as the Ottoman on this map. I thought he would pick Spain as well for this particular game, since, of course, Spain is really, really well favoured by the sheer amount of course, treasures on the map. But then there are a sizable portion of trading posts on this map as well. So Ottoman can benefit from that if they want to do something with the trading posts, which is, of course, this is vanilla. You have... Oh, it doesn't have it in his deck. I was expecting Silk Road, but actually this deck is very fortress-orientated as well. It definitely has some colonial capabilities with the, with some of the shipments in there, but a lot of those, 700 coin at least, and 700 wood as well, I suppose it's going to be for the fast fortress. So, PK Clan Tournament 3, everybody. If you enjoy Spain and Ottoman matches and a mixture of mirrors, then this is definitely the tournament for you. Spain and Ottoman just being the top tier civs for this particular version of the game, which is why in future events I would like to impose some civilization rules. Anyway, 150 food, Gaia picking himself up just there, the red player there. Really, really nice. Going to be going up to the next age. Well, this is Shmras. He's going to be going up to the next stage right now. Now, this map, I wouldn't say is so good for Ottoman, because they spend about a minute of their time building the trading site there, and then they have to scout around this side of the map for any hunts they might have. For example, this hunt just here, and this hunt just just here, and then by the time they found them, they're then ready to go into this side of the map a little bit further into the game. As you can see, it's like 2 minutes 45 in, and he still hasn't been able to get into the treasure-rich side of the map, where all the big treasures are. He's just letting Spain collect all of them up and generate that, very, very big advantage. That 75 food investment for a war dog is paying dividends very, very quickly, very, very large amounts of stuff. But yes, collecting some wood now. You see the Ottoman player, he managed to get his age up in queue, going up with the governor. So that is, of course, an outpost and 200 gold. Clearly has a fast fortress in mind, but he's collected, I believe, 200 wood there. Perhaps he's going to go for, oh no, he's going for advanced trading post. That is, no, he's cancelled it. He did have advanced trading post in queue. But anyway, I said he's collected 200 and almost 250 wood for that extra trading post, which he could build. Almost got confused there because on tab they do cost slightly less. But advanced trading post is an interesting shipment. Perhaps he was thinking of building all of the trading sites, but then there's only 2 more to build. So actually, of course, this one in his opponent's base is too close to his opponent's base to build. It won't let you build it there. So actually, it'd only be saving. He'd only be getting 2 trading posts. So it's probably not on a map like Great Lakes. It might be more viable to do that. But let's switch over to Gaia in the north of the map. Here he is. And he is also quite well aged as well. Ottoman is further ahead, as you would expect, but all of those food treasures he managed to find. Of course, what did he find? He found 150 food. He found that Carrera de Bois, which is going to be generating him food, and he's actually aging up at a very similar time to his opponent. Here we see he switched his villagers over to wood. He's generated enough wood for a trading post, and he's going to put that down. So we're all familiar with the fast fortress build. He has his hunts are, okay. He's got this herd of muskox, and he's starting to run out of his initial kind of caribou. And this one over here, he's trying to bring in, but once this food runs out, he's not going to have that much food. And of course, most of the food is in the middle, and I expect Ottoman will be controlling this area of the game. But then again, who says? Depending on what he does. In the very first game we saw this matchup, Ottoman versus Spain, and they're actually playing the same civs for that. He chose to play rather boomy with a 5 villager shipment and a market and stuff like that. And I think actually what might be better is, of course, being more aggressive like we saw in the second game in that Spain mirror, sending like 7 Rodelleros followed by 10 Rodelleros from the barracks that you make, or maybe 10 musketeers, and then just as soon as your opponent hits up, you get 4 cavalry upon hitting up with Spain if you want. You can use those cavalry to deal with your opponent's 4 Abbas guns when he hits up to fortress, because no doubt he will have scouted. Let's turn the fog of war on. He's scouted the 200 gold on the floor, some gold on the floor at least. He hasn't seen any military buildings just yet. I think what he's looking for is maybe Blue's outpost, which he's found just here. So he knows for certain Blue is definitely going up to the fortress age. We'll see what he chooses to do. Shmras, though, I imagine we'll see a very similar build to the last game, that 700 gold on the floor. Does he have a barracks up yet, though? Like I said in the very first game, building a barracks, because of course he's about to get all the resources he needs to age up, but he has enough wood for a barracks which he could construct, put 1 janissary in production, and that way you don't have to wait for the 700 wood to arrive before you get your barracks up, meaning that you'll get 5 janissaries out sooner rather than later, and you can use that to harass your opponent's villagers. On that very first game you could use it to take down the trading site, but in this particular game Gaia's trading post is quite safe. It's on his side of the map there, so perhaps that's not going to happen, but definitely has all the resources he needs to age up. Now we'll see which he goes up with. Most likely the marksman. Going up with the marksman for 4 Abbas guns. Let's switch over to Gaia. Now sending 700 wood. Both players sending that. Of course, that's going to provide them with the infrastructure they'll need for their fortress age combat. Of course, houses, barracks, and stuff like that. We'll see if he does anything out of the ordinary, but we're expecting a barracks here as soon as this wood arrives. We're expecting houses. Sending 7 Rodelleros. Okay, so going to be aggressive this game. In the previous one, perhaps opting for a more economic kind of approach with the 5 villager shipment, which was, but this one I'm going to send 7 rods. I expect we'll see a barracks go down very, very quickly, and then we'll see he'll probably train 10 musks, as I said, or even 5 Rodelleros, and he can use those once they're out. We'll send the 2 cannons the moment he hits up, and of course he'll have a decent amount of anti-cavalry to protect those cannons with. We'll switch over to Shmras though and see what he's got in mind. Sending his starting to train some janissaries now. I'm sure he'll get those all in. He'll get 5 janissaries out, and he'll probably think about the veteran janissary upgrade upon hitting up to the next age. But yeah, you can see his shipments, right? He's almost got 1 ready, available for the next age. But Gaia much further ahead in terms of shipments. He's already got this one on the way, which is arriving. That was my Facebook, by the way. Don't get confused. 7 Rodelleros there, about to arrive. And he's almost got his next shipment available about the same way as the Ottoman player did. So he's actually an entire shipment ahead, which is really big if you think about it. There are 1,000 resources, these shipments, in the Fortress Age at least. 7 Rodelleros here. Musketeers now in queue. I think that barracks might have gone up a little bit late. I think he's only going to be able to get 5 Musketeers out of that. Ideally he wants 10 so that Yeah, because when he hits up to Fortress, he doesn't want to be making Musketeers. He wants to be making skirmishers, so really he needed these a little bit sooner. Perhaps, but, you know, both these two outposts in the center of the map gonna, you know, keep an eye on this hunt here, perhaps give him some sort of map presence here, and he can also use this as a forward spawn point. I suppose he identified his opponent was going to be fast fortressing and didn't really feel any need to put his own tower in his base because he wasn't expecting any kind of pressure. But that is something the Ottoman can do, and I'm surprised that Shmras is sticking to his fast fortress style build. He must expect this to be a particularly strong one, because playing colonial against Spain is also viable. I suppose you can kind of kill all their houses, or you can do that weird build where you mass up a ton of Janissaries with the 700 food and the 600 food shipments and then storm in and take down their town centre just as they hit up to the next stage, but that is not the case today. Anyway, here, starting to siege down, of course, this outpost here, but these Janissaries now coming forward to do some damage. This Rodella is taking a shot there, not too good, but the outpost taking a little bit of damage, starting to be a little bit aggressive on that. 8 Janissaries now in queue at his home city. They will arrive, of course, and then choosing to send those first this time. In the previous game, he went with the 2 cannon shipment first, but in this game, sending 8 Janissaries first. Perhaps he feels as if he does not have the anti-cavalry necessary to protect 2 cannons here, but those 4 cavalry coming in, going to take out those Abbas guns. If these Abbas guns go down, then actually he's quite far behind, because Abbas guns are really, really strong against all kinds of infantry with their 40 ranged attack or siege damage attack multiplied by 1.5, and he's losing them all to the cavalry here. 5 Lancers popping out from Gaia. You know, of course, with this very aggressive build, his opponent is mostly just going to have Janissaries, maybe some Abbas guns, and of course Lancers are very, very strong against the Janissaries here, and I expect there's no doubt that he will actually, these Lancers, be able to carry him through and eliminate all of these Janissaries here. But actually, by the looks of it, that is not the case. The Lancers going down. I thought actually the Lancers would achieve more than that. And he does out. Perhaps that was the lack of. He's only just got his skirmishers arriving. If they were here a little bit sooner, they would definitely have helped those Lancers. But at this point, he is still quite far ahead. Those Janissaries can't really do anything. They don't want to stay in range of the skirmishers. They are going to have to retreat. This means that this tower is going to go down, though. This tower does have a lot of HP, and these units don't have particularly much speed aside from those Musketeers, but there aren't actually that many of them. Here you can see the Janissaries coming forward, perhaps going to try and kill a unit, but they don't want to stay in range of the skirmishers. They're not going to stay there too long. We're going to see 4 Hussars, or 4 Lancers more to the point, pop out of here. These are going to come forward, and now he does have the military he needs to genuinely actually take out all of these units here. He also has some skirmishers now coming up, of course, on the way as well. Let's switch over. 2 cannons popping out here for Shmras. I was about to switch over to him. We see he also has his veteran Janissary upgrade in queue as well. These Lancers perhaps trying to come forward and eliminate those cannons, but actually, you know, very much like in the last game, not going to commit to that. And it's actually, he lost basically 3 Lancers. These 2 are half HP from just getting too close to those Janissaries and the, of course, cannons. But, you know, choosing to send the cannons after the 8 Janissary shipment this particular game, because didn't have the anti-cavalry. If he had those cannons instead, you know, he had 8 extra Janissaries in that first encounter. If those 8 Janissaries were instead these 2 cannons, then at this point in the game, I expect Shmras would have lost, because there were a decent amount of Lancers and skirmishers and stuff like that in that first encounter. And without those 8 extra Janissaries, there's no way that this would have worked. But I think this particular build, this time of Gaia, you know, choosing to play much more aggressively than in the first game is working out for him. Let's switch over to him, though, just a moment. We see 5 Abbas guns now about to arrive from this Ottoman player, adding in some, you know, different units. Abbas guns, of course, going to be useful for taking out, well, literally anything aside from cavalry, I suppose. They're good against pretty much everything, and there's a decent amount of Janissaries there to protect them with, as well as these 2 cannons. Now that these have arrived, I imagine he's going to press on forward. In the previous game, we saw him send 1,000 coin instead of 5 Abbas gun, and he went for the Mamelukes, which was very, very secure. But at this point in the game, of course, you know, Gaia has his 2 cannon shipment now. If Gaia pressed out and these 5 Abbas are actually 1,000 gold, then that 1,000 gold doesn't come to fruition, using my new fancy word, until a bit later on. But now, you know, these Abbas guns give him a reasonable spot here. The only issue I see here is Abbas guns are, as I said, very strong against everything. They do siege damage, not range damage, and that siege damage is going to be able to prod through these falconets quite easily. They have a 75% ranged resist, but they do not resist siege damage, only range damage. So these Abbas guns are going to be very effective if they can get a volley of shots off on those cannons there and not take any damage themselves. Of course, cannons do hard to counter Abbas guns. They do a lot of damage to Abbas guns being, of course, infantry. And that's what cannons do times 3 against. But we'll switch over to Shmras, to Gaia, as I said I would earlier, to, of course, skirmishers in production here. He doesn't have a huge amount of anti-cavalry. So if Mamelukes were to arrive, which I think he needs to be thinking about, Mamelukes, of course, very strong, does need to be concerned about those. He doesn't have anything really to protect that, but, you know, perhaps he knows, or perhaps he's, I don't know, yeah, he's got his Explorer there. I think he has seen maybe the 5 Abbas guns, and he maybe realizes that therefore, the Mamelukes aren't quite on the way just yet. Perhaps. He is playing very passively back here, though, and I think, that early aggression of his needed to do better. It needed to do more than it did. Perhaps, of course, if his opponent had stuck to the cannon build, he'd probably have won, but chose to send the 8 Janissaries first instead of the 2 cannons. Anyway, 9 Rodella is now on the way. He's going to need those to protect his, of course, large mass of anti-infantry, of course, his skirmisher mass, and, of course, those 2 cannons there. Doesn't have that much anti-cavalry. 1,000 gold being shipped to this forward outpost here. That is unfortunate. He probably wanted that back in his base, and now that the gold is on the front there, he's going to have to go and gather it. And if Red seizes control of that area, then that is not going to be too good. But at this point in time, can't actually see that it's there. Now starting to train, of course, some Rodelleros. He does need a bit more population. I think what he wants to do is get the veteran Rodellero upgrade for the 20% attack and hit points, but he's kind of having to spend his wood on houses. Anyway, at this point in the game, scores fairly similar. 27 villagers to Garja, whereas Shmras is on 23. But you have to remember, these villagers train for free. He does not have to pay for his Ottoman villagers. So actually, I would say that Shmras, you know, Garja not far enough ahead. He is ahead by a few, but since he has to pay for his villagers, I'd say he's behind. And his army doesn't look that great. I mean, here we just see Shmras waiting. I think maybe the 5 Abbas guns were there just in case Spain did push out, which is what he was expecting, perhaps. But now that the coin has arrived, he doesn't really want to push out, because that coin is, you know, the coin, as I said in the first game, could be 5 hussars, it could be a military shipment, but it's not. He has to wait until his next shipment becomes available before that coin can be turned into Mamelukes, which are absolutely disgusting, as I keep saying. So actually he's just going to play defensively next to this tower here. He has his military on the front, because he wants to protect the coin mine that was shipped to, the coins crates that were shipped to this forward outpost. But if the coin was in his base, no doubt he would have his units all the way back in his base, or near this hunts or something, near his barracks or whatever. Be nice to see him adding in a second trading post, maybe starting to acquire the trade route. But then again, at this, you know, doesn't want to waste resources building stuff he doesn't need. He just wants to keep massing up Janissaries and have that superior mass. And he honestly, all he's waiting for now is those Mamelukes. He's got the coin ready, and he's just waiting for the XP to become available for that next shipment. We see here that he needs actually 252 more XP. He's going to get 85 from this trading post here, so that green bar jumps up by a bit, but still waiting. And, you know, in theory, the longer the game goes on like this, the more the advantage shifts to Garja, because, of course, the all civilizations kind of outboom Ottoman in the long run, but Ottoman does have this scary mass, and I don't think, you know, he doesn't want to come forward just yet until the Mamelukes arrive, and then he'll have that peak power, that optimum ability to push out and be super powerful. Switching over to Garja. 8 Rodella is on the way. He has a sizable portion of rods. I think he needs to grab the veteran upgrade, but of course that is quite hard to do when you're having to build a lot of houses. He needs something to deal with the Mamelukes again, but, you know, Rodelleros are, whilst they're good against cavalry and stuff, just like in the first game, there are so many, you know, the cannons here, the Abbas guns, the Janissaries, they're going to be very strong against these rods. And every time the Mamelukes come forward, the rods will have to come forward, and then every time the Mamelukes decide, actually, I'm going to retreat because I don't want to take damage from these rods, the rods will still be there on the front taking damage. So it's less than ideal. He needs a lot of skirmishers as well to deal with the Janissaries, and it's not too good. Of course, has this Lancer down here. Perhaps he managed to get a raid in. I'm not entirely sure, but then again, perhaps he is scouting as well. I'm not entirely sure how well these players are scouting. I haven't really been keeping an eye on it. But by the looks of it here, you know, the Spanish player doesn't want to sit around any longer. He's got his mass here. I think he's ready to push in. He's going to start taking out that cannon there. But you see Blue getting ready to kind of defend. He sees that his Explorer takes some damage there from these 2 cannons here. And this is an interesting standoff. We're just waiting for, both players do not want, it's the cannons that are going to take out the other cannons. Of course, Blue has his Abbas guns as well, which he might get involved. But really, he's got to be very careful. And at the same time, you're really hoping to plant that shot on the Falconet and do well. He has managed to get that veteran Rodellero upgrade, by the way. So actually, the Mamelukes might not be that amazing against him. Mamelukes, they arrived? Yeah, there they are. They're on the board. Mamelukes are go. So actually, these rods should be able to protect the cannons reasonably well, and the skirmishers, but then at the same time, he's got all of these rods, which, you know, rods are only good against the cav, and he's going to have to use the skirmishes to deal the rest of the damage against the units here. And he's going to have to win the cannon fight if he wants to stand a chance in this fight, because the sheer massive janissaries there is absolutely astonishing. That is huge. Here now coming in, you can see them being very, very careful. Neither player really wants to get involved fully. The rods coming forward, perhaps going to take some damage from the units there, losing a couple of rods. We see the cannons attacking each other. One cannon on half health there. One of the cannons going down. Red wins the cannon fight. Both cannons alive. Both blues cannons down. And we see now that those rods coming forward to deal with the Mamelukes here. Lots of skirmishes in the back. Really favourable position for Gaia, but you can see he's still really, really outmassed. The rod's out of position. The Mamelukes coming in, going to deal damage to those skirmishes. Both the cannons coming down. Enough janissaries and, well, Hours guns as well, just to literally focus down those two cannons. It doesn't even matter that he won the cannon fight. Blues is like, oh, well, I'll just go in and shoot them dead. He's got such a large mass, and you can see here, every time these Mamelukes come forward, the Rodellos have to go forward to protect the skirmishers, and it's kind of awkward because there's not a lot of space there, but whilst the Rodellos are forward, they're going to be taking damage from these janissaries, and what's going to happen is Blue will just keep pushing forward whilst Red is trying to go back, so he keeps his longer range skirmishers out of the range of these lower range units, and he can keep kiting with them, but he's going to have to keep pulling the Rodellos in and out, and he's going to keep losing them, and he's going to get forced back, and eventually there's no more map really to go. Calling his Minutemen here, I believe he'll have to have some villages in the town centre as well, but calling the game there, and rightfully so, because you can see he's just going to get forced back to the very edge of the map, and as he gets forced back, he's losing more and more Rodellos, and then when there's no Rodellos left, no kind of tank line left, the Mamelukes just destroy all of those skirmishes. And look at these Mamelukes. Switch over to Shmras. They're absolutely disgusting. Like, none of them are dead. None of them. If we combined all the damage that they've taken on just one of them, one of them might die. But when you're dealing with a unit that has 1,450 hit points, and let's put that in perspective, a Rodello has 156. It is a very strong unit, the Mamelukes, and the fact that you get 5 of them for 1,000 gold makes Ottoman really strong. Ottoman is not just strong for that reason, though, but that is the end of the game. Once all of these units of Red were dead, they just continue to clear up the houses and the trading post. Sorry, the market. The market? I don't know. The barracks is what I meant to say, and the trading post and the town centre and all of that stuff. And yeah, I think, you know, Spain does stand a chance in this, but what he needed to do was, I think what hurt him a lot was early on in the game. His barracks, he got up late, I think, and he trained 5 musks. And then he hit up to Fortress with only 5 musks and 7 rods, and that wasn't enough. He needed 10 musks. I think he needed 10 musks and 7 rods, and then he can train maybe some war dogs from his explorer. And those 4 cavalry that he had, he could use them, of course, to take out the Abbas guns as he did. But with those extra musketeers, you definitely have, more of a force to fight with. And then as those 8 janissaries pop out from his opponent's tower and stuff, when his lancers arrive, he should be able to deal with them more effectively. The lancers won't be so overwhelmed by melee damaged veteran janissaries, which have, of course, very strong multipliers against cavalry. And then if he had managed to neutralise that 8 janissary shipment, of course his 4 lancer shipment was available. He continues to mass skirmishes, and then once he once he's got lots of skirmishes, he starts to send military unit shipments such as 12 pikes and Rodellos and stuff like that, and then that is where he could win the game. But I think, that window of opportunity really early on, and not doing as much damage as he perhaps needed to do. So that is the end of this game. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I'm going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with game number 5 in this series. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to PK Clan Tournament number 3. This is game number 5 in a best of 7 series between Garja and Shmras, competing for that first and second place split in the $450 cash prize that was made available for this event. So this is a vanilla tournament. Therefore, we'll be using vanilla map civilizations. It's played on vanilla. Therefore, we see Gaia taking Spain. Spain, definitely a very strong civilization on vanilla, as I have said countless times throughout these commentaries. It is a strong civilization. That is why it's being picked. Unfortunately, though, Gaia has lost most of his matches so far. The score is currently 3 to Shmras and 1 to Gaia. Gaia winning a game with France, where he was not using well, Gaia being mostly the Asian Dynasties player, I would say is perhaps not so good with Spain. He doesn't play Spain perhaps as often. France is maybe a stronger civ, and that's why he's picked it. But, here we see, leaving his wood on the floor, he's got 40 in one, 60 in the other. That's 400 wood. Doesn't need that wood. Needs to age up sooner rather than later. That wood is not going to help him age up. He's going to leave it there. Can always go back for it later. And is collecting from these rhea, which are kind of like ostriches, or I don't really know what they are. They're just birds that you can gather food from. That's really good. Okay, so over here, going for a 100 wood treasure, we see Shmras is exploring combat with, of course, an outlaw blowgunner. Switching over to Shmras. He is playing as Spain by the looks of it. We see he has a war dog of his own. So a Spain mirror, everybody. That is what we have with us. We saw a Spain mirror earlier. Gaia, unfortunately, didn't manage to win that one. I guess we're kind of cheering for Gaia now, but I should remain unbiased. But Spain is civilization of choice for the same reason Gaia's is. It's a strong civilization, and they want to win. Blah blah blah. But also, he played Ottoman in his previous game and won. And because of that, the civilization rules do not allow him to play it again. He can no longer play as the Ottoman. He has to change to a different civilization, and Spain is, of course, quite strong, so he's gone for that, I suppose. But, so far he has actually collected up his wood. I believe he just found 100 wood, that's right. So, right now, actually, since he had, well, they'll both start with the same crates, and since he's found 100 wood, he could actually lay down a trading post with that. And that is what I would encourage him to do, but he's, by the looks of it, just going to scout a little bit further before he lays down that trading post. But that wood is really, really nice. Perhaps, though, he has something else in mind for the wood, maybe some sort of colonial agenda. But actually, whilst Spain colonial is not good compared to their fortress, but it's possible. It's just that I'm interested to see why he has chosen not to build the trading post. Perhaps he will a little bit later on. We'll see. Anyway, has 16 villages. What has he found? He found a cow. Hashtag Azamk. But he's choosing to go up on 16 villages. A lot of Spanish players will go up on 15, so you can get to the colonial age a bit quicker, but depending on how well you macroed in the early portions of the game, you might be able to squeeze out that extra 100 food to go up. Of course, if he'd have 600 food right now if he didn't have that villager in queue, and maybe, there is enough time to train that villager, and in the long run, that extra villager will be better, despite getting up to the colonial age a little bit slower. We'll switch over to Gaia, who is in the south of the map down here. Has a lot of llamas. Also going with 16 villages, so both choosing to do that. Both playing very similar builds at the moment. And lots of livestock. That could be quite useful later on, of course. Once, he does have 7 livestock animals, or 8, 9 almost. So actually a livestock pen is something to consider, but since they cost, it takes far too long for a livestock pen to really pay back. So perhaps, that isn't really something he's going to be thinking about doing. And also that 200 wood he'd be spending probably be better spent on houses and a barracks, and because if he didn't spend it on about houses, then he'd have to collect for the houses because he's going to Fast Fortress and he'll need the population slot. So actually collecting this food up now could be useful sooner rather than later, but the longer it stays there, that's a big food boost at some point in the game and could give him an edge over his opponent. He's now collecting wood. Of course, switching his villagers from food to wood. He wants to get enough wood for that trading post, as we have seen in many of the other games here. Taking a look at his hunt, he's got, well, not amazing hunt. He does have berries. There's a herd down here which he's trying to bring in, but he does have a lot of llamas, so that is something. But switching over to Shmras in the north of the map. Also, now collecting some wood, by the looks of it, gone up to 250 wood. That is why he did not build a trading post, everybody. Trading posts cost 250 on TAD. No, they don't. They cost 250 on vanilla. And did not have enough for a trading post. I'm so used to them costing just 200 wood. And that is why he didn't build the trading post. But, the fact that he found so much wood, he could have collected 50 extra wood and gone for the trading post, though it would slow him down to colonial even more and delay his Fast Fortress. You would get some extra XP, but to be honest, finding that wood just means he only has to collect 50 wood once he gets the age up in queue, and is therefore going to be in a better spot since he's collecting less wood, and wood is a slow gathering resource. He does, however, have a lot of war dogs. That is interesting. What has he found? He found a Carrera de Bois, which is pretty good. Maybe that's what it was for. That Explorer hasn't taken very much damage, though. And he's found 100 wood. That is it. So, these war dogs, interesting. Maybe they're going to be useful for... maybe they were being used to grab treasures, or perhaps he was in some sort of early conflict with his opponent. I'm not entirely sure there. It seems strange since they cost 75 food each, and it would slow you down, really, to the next stage. But now he's up. A tower and 200 gold on the floor. No doubts about what he is going to be doing this game. 700 gold on the way, followed by 700 wood as well. We're going to lay down that trading, so this outpost somewhere. Going to send it forward, switch over to Garja and see what he's doing. Very similar build, 700 gold on the floor now, 200 gold on the floor as well from the outpost. 700 gold in the shipment, rather, I meant to say, and sending that outpost forward. Both going for that fast fortress agenda. Both have 3 villagers in queue at their town centres, and is, of course, going to... well, whilst you're in Colonial, you might as well train a few villages before you go up to Fortress, because you do have the time to do that. Placing a very, very forward outpost next to his trading post here. This is, of course, about half map. It's nice to put it there. It kind of gives him some sort of protection, sort of, to the trading post. And also he can use this as a forward spawn point. He could also put his barracks up there and play aggressively and all of that jazz. We've seen this definitely already, though. Very, very, standard fast fortress build from both players. We're just really waiting for them to get into the action where the game is really going to happen. But, not that much food left for him. Actually, neither player has particularly much food. This food down here is not in his base. It is vulnerable. And this food is also not in his base. So neither player's on a particularly high food count. I think here, since he's not gathering food, he's actually, he's not going to get all the resources he needs for the age up. There are berries. There's so many idle villages. That is really not too good for him. Unfortunately, he's going to have to walk them quite a long way before they can start to gather. Now starting to sort that out, but his age up is going to be delayed slightly, which isn't too good. Perhaps if he hadn't trained those war dogs, he would be able to age up right now. But there is certainly that. He has, of course, his first shipment available. He does not have the population slots to send 7 Rodelleros if that is what he intends to do. Switching over to Gaia, see what he is doing. Shipment just becoming available. Of course, it took him a little bit longer to get his trading site up than his opponent did, since he did not find a 100 wood treasure. So his shipment only just becoming available, perhaps. Is he going to send anything, though? We'll see what he chooses to do. Laying down that barracks there. It might be worth not sending 7... Oh, no, you're gonna go with the aggressive agenda then. Send 7 Rodelleros, train 10 Musketeers in Colonial. Perhaps he can get this barracks up a bit quicker this time than in the previous game, and then can actually, choose to be very... Well, get more Musketeers out than you did last time. Have 10 Musketeers rather than 5, and that could be definitely more useful. Of course, though, his opponent is playing Spain this time, not Ottoman, but still, all of those units are going to be good. The barracks now just going up for Shmras over here, collecting a lot of food from these berry bushes, of course, trying to herd this rear herd or flock closer to his town before he switched them from the berries to this, because walking time is actually going to cost him quite a lot. But, I think a lot of idle villager time there, then having to gather the berries, now having to walk this way, herding not being done... well, it could have been done better, but then again, his hunts weren't great, so I can't, you can't really critique him too much, but he has ultimately lost a lot of food, and that is going to result in not being able to get quite as many units out. We'll switch over to Shmras. We see 7 Rodellos now just on the way. He's lacking the gold for the Musketeers. He has got a lot of war dogs, but that's perhaps because he's not generating a lot of food. He already had 3 war dogs, just had to train 2 more. And yeah, he's got some villagers on gold now. He's sort of sort that out, but he's only managed. I don't know how many Musketeers he's going to get. And if we compare that to, say, Gaia, who he has the 7 rods out, he's going to get those 5 musks out just as he hits up, and he's going to pressure in, of course, with the 4 cavalry that will appear at this outpost upon hitting up. And he should, since he'll have more Musketeers, he'll definitely be in a stronger position here. Though we have to take into account Shmras does have war dogs. War dogs are pretty strong. I think Gaia opting to train Musketeers more so than war dogs there. Maybe a better choice. We see, this is, well, we'll see what happens. The fighting is just about to get Guy, just about to hit up. Shmras, not that far behind him, but now at this point in time, actually aging it with 8 pikemen. So here, choosing not to go with the 4 cavalry. 8 pikemen is probably a better decision, actually, all things considered, because he needs the anti-cavalry to protect his Wodjamowitz, the 2 cannons that he can send. And he had a slight advantage since he aged up and got those 8 pikemen before, but now these 8 pikemen of Shmras have just arrived, and they're both very even in terms of military count. You see that Shmras does not have quite enough resources at the moment to queue a skirmisher, but I'm pretty sure that's what he wants to do. And we'll switch over to Gaia. We'll look at him. He has got a skirmisher in production. He might be able to get a couple out there just before it pops. There is a bit of an engagement here. Of course, those Musketeers are going to want to focus down those Rodelleros and focus down the War Dogs, since War Dogs have quite a high damage output but very low hit points, and Rodelleros don't resist any ranged damage, and nor do pikemen actually. But just take them down with the Musketeers. Make sure you're focusing down the weak ones with these melee units here. And now these 5 Lancers just popping out here. We'll switch over to Shmras and see when his shipment's about to arrive. It has also arrived. Where is it? No, it hasn't. He's just starting to send it right now. 9 Rodelleros only just starting to be sent. He is a military unit shipment down. Of course, they will arrive eventually, but they need to be on the battlefield right now. 5 Lancers going to absolutely shred through everything, as you can see. Gaia securing a absolutely massive lead, annihilating absolutely all of the units here, especially since he had some extra musketeers compared to his opponent, and these Lancers, you know, very, very strong against all forms of infantry. Shmras, I think maybe he forgot to send his shipment. Perhaps he had tunnel vision from this conflict and was microing like an absolute boss and forgot to send it. Or perhaps he didn't know which one to send and instead chose to cancel it we've seen him willing to cancel shipments just like that. I think here, Red could press on that. I don't know if he actually saw it. Yeah, he can see it. There's, he can definitely see... Oh, no, this is Shmras. We'll switch over to Gaia here. Those 5 Lancers could definitely engage those Musketeers there very effectively, but now we have to consider those Rodelleros have just arrived. You see Gaia's lead, though, reflected in the score. He's about 10 points up. There's about 1,000 resources difference. These 5 skirmishes now going to come in, and these Musketeers and Rodelleros really cannot do anything against skirmishes. They're just going to have to walk back. Shmras is going to need some extra units here, and then we see, of course, plenty of Lancers. I think now would be a good time to press his advantage. Of course, Rodelleros are good against, of course, cavalry, but Rodelleros are still... Sorry, Lancers are still very, very strong against all forms of infantry, and I think here he'd be able to annihilate all of these units with his 9 Lancers there, but actually is choosing to just take down that outpost. We'll switch over to Gaia. No, we won't. We'll switch over to Shmras and see what he's got. Now going to come in. We see his 5 Lancer shipment of his own. He's using his 5 Lancers to take out those skirmishers. We see Red here does not have anything to protect his skirmishers with. Those Lancers just going to absolutely shred through them. He has no form of anti-cavalry, and despite those late shipments, he's actually going to even this up quite nicely. Of course, these Musketeers now going to go into hand combat. Musketeers are quite strong against cavalry, especially in hand combat. Those Rodellero just popping out of his house, but actually a bit late, and Shmras clawing this back from where he was. I think whilst he was sieging down this tower, really what Gaia needed to do, as I was pointing out, send those Lancers. He had 9 Lancers, and there were only a couple of military units there. Take them out, and he would still have his position here. But because those units were left alive, and combined with his military shipment, he's able to claw it back. And here we see now the tides have shifted. Blue has worked his way back, and the score is very, very similar now. Both players on a very similar score. Rodello is coming in, I think, a little bit out of position there, walking in unnecessarily. What is going on? They're not surrounded by any other units. The skirmishers on the wrong side there. I think he is trying to focus down the Lancers whilst he's in there, which is good, but he's going to lose all of those Rodelleros to, of course, the skirmishers and the Musketeers and whatever else is there, and I think maybe going in just a bit too soon before the skirmishers were to arrive. And now we see Shmras popping out some Lancers from that tower as a home city shipment, and they're going to absolutely tear through Gaia's units. Really not too good for him there. He was in such a strong position at the start of the game, and it's just shifted just like that, just from a couple of things, and sieging down this outpost, which isn't even dead yet, when he could have, I don't know, maybe that was not the, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but this is the result of the game at the moment. Blue is quite far ahead with regards to military units. We'll switch over to Gaia. We see what he's got on the way. 12 pikemen, starting to train some Lancers as well. Doesn't have any gold coming in, where he needs to maybe he had a large gold stockpile. I haven't been looking at his side particularly much, but you can see here, going to take out that outpost, and then Shmras will be ahead. And with regards to military units, he's only got a couple of skirmishers down here. He does have those pikemen now to protect his skirmisher mass with, but he doesn't really have a mass of skirmishers to protect. He is, however, starting to train some Lancers, which will be very strong against the skirmishers here. There's not really that much anti-cavalry. There's only a couple of Musketeers, so these Lancers, it's definitely not over. He could claw this back, but at this point, Blue is kind of quite far ahead. With regard, I think, yeah, we just saw a military unit shipment. Shmras identifying that he needs some more extra anti-cavalry units, and therefore sending his 8 Rodellero shipment to protect his massive skirmishers with, which is going to continue to grow. I think, yeah, we've got some more skirmishers here. He's going to queue some more skirms there. I think, yeah, he's got, I think cannons would be a good idea soon. Neither player has sent that. Neither player having enough anti-cavalry at any one moment to actually warrant sending it here. And we see now Blue is going to take down this trading post, and then Blue will have one trading post, and Red will not have any, and Red will start to get even further behind there. He's now sending his... Blue is now sending his cannons. Maybe he feels as if he has enough anti-cavalry units to protect them with, continuing to train skirmishers, of course. Going to keep shipping those anti-cavalry units. Still got his 12 and 10 pikemen to send. Switching back to Gaia. 8 Rodelleros on the way. Still, he's got 12 pikes, so I suppose 2... No, he's cancelling that anti-cav. He's decided that actually 2 cannons will be useful here, but even so, he's a trading post down. He's got a smaller mass of units, and his opponent, his opponent is not over yet. Though we'll see what happens. Gaia does have 27 villagers. Shmras on 28, so very even. Only one villager difference, which is hardly a lot. And I think despite a lot of idle time there and collecting from berries and then having to walk over to these ostriches and not having quite as many units as he would like to have had early game, Shmras definitely managing to pick it up and keep the game going. Maybe his micro or whatever he's doing, he's definitely doing something right there. Or perhaps Guy is doing something wrong. But, probably not the case. Guy's a good player. So here we see 2 cannons now out. If he can protect these cannons well, I mean, these houses and the market are built quite nicely to create, make it difficult for cavalry or anything to really get close to those cannons. And if he's on the defending side, he can, of course, call his Minutemen. And we have to remember his barracks. He has got a stable up as well. He's been training Lancers. His units will be closer to home when they're created. They won't have to walk, unlike Blue's units, will have to spawn at this barracks, walk across the map like these skirmishes before they can get involved. And if he stays in his base, then he might be able to pull this back. But then again, he might have to leave his base as he is doing now because, of course, he is running out of hunt. There is just the berries, which are running out quickly, and he's going to need some hunt. These are definitely there is a lot of map presence for Blue in this area, and he has control of these hunts here. And you can see that he is leading in terms of mass, but also in score now. He's got about 25 points more than his opponent, which is the equivalent of 2,500 resources. Now just going to start prodding at this barracks here. Going to force the issue, just going to start attacking stuff with the cannons, and we can see these skirmishes coming forward, perhaps looking for some villagers to kill, maybe trying to lure out some lances or something. Of course, if they don't want to get too far away from the anti-cavalry mass, because of course these skirmishes are vulnerable to lances such as these, which Gaia does have. Let's switch over to him. But Shmras now sending 12 pikes. That he does need some more anti-cavalry, I would say there, if Gaia had. But then again, Gaia doesn't actually have. He has 10 lancers. At this point in time, he could do a lot of damage if he can kill. No, I don't think it's going to pay off. But he could do a lot of damage here. He's got the lancers to do it with, and his opponent is waiting on his 12 pikeman shipment to come in. Those cannons now off to safety. His cannons now setting up to do some damage here, and we can see that the cavalry, his opponent's anti-cavalry, going to try and kill off these lancers. And actually, the lancers going down pretty quickly, I would say. But you can see actually, once his opponent's anti-cavalry is down, these lancers will be free to absolutely destroy everything. And I think actually all of the blue anti-cavalry is now dead, and these lancers are free to do that. And all that is left is just skirmishers. But then again, there's nothing really. Well, blue has a large mass of skirmishers up the top here. Red did not. And yeah, whilst the lancers were being quite effective, they then ran out, and there was really nothing to. That was that. Wow. Okay. Alright, so the 2 cannon shipment down, and you can see in the score, Shmras on 130, Gaia on 90 points there. Shmras, the blue player, very far ahead. This was so good, this game, in the early portion, and Gaia was leading that really nicely. It's really, really well played from Shmras to get back into this here. Anyway, 5 lancers now being trained at the stable here. The barracks has gone down. He's managed to clean that up with the cannons and kept one of his cannons alive. I believe he lost a cannon to some lancers, but I think it was a fair trade. He managed to trade off all his opponent's lancers for his pikemen and a cannon. But, yeah, 5 lancers now going to pop out, 8 Rodelleros. If he can get that cannon down for free somehow, then he's not actually in a hugely bad position. But I don't think, Shmras is going to give him that cannon. At the moment, he's inviting him into taking it for free. There's nothing surrounding it to protect it. Calling his Minutemen now. It's not the ideal time to call his Minutemen, but really he wants his opponent to be attacking the town centre, and the town centre to be in range of course, that cannon there. But going to try and go in and get the cannon, but he's not going to give it for free. That cannon take. Actually, he's losing the cannon quite easily, but I still don't think Red has quite enough units to deal with it. Lots of pikemen there. Of course, that 12 pikeman shipment catching up in the end to protect these skirmishers. Going to do very well against the lancers there. Protect the skirmishers. Skirmishers going to do damage to all of the Rodelleros and stuff like that in the Minutemen. And you can see that really what's going to happen. Red's going to lose his units, and then Blue will just push in and destroy the buildings. That is the end of the game, ladies and gentlemen. Shmras picking up his 4th victory in this best of 7 series. He only needs 1 more game, I believe. Score being, he needs first to 5 points, something like that. I don't know. This is, yeah, so Garja is going to have to make something happen. He's only on 1 point. Let's bring up my notepad file again. I really need to get a scoreboard sorted out. But 4 to Shmras, 1 to Garja, unfortunately. Money is on the line here. Let me quit out of this game. I'm going to take a quick break. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to PK Clan Tournament number 3. This is game number 6 in a best of 9 series. I've been calling it a best of 7 series the entire time that I've been doing this. It's not a best of 7 series, it's a best of 9. And the current score is 4 points to Shmras, blue, and 1 point to Garja in red. He has had some unfortunate losses, but some very near victories in this series. And I believe that if Shmras takes this final game, he will win this event and win a 70% split of whatever we've all heard that. I've said that enough times throughout the course of this. But anyway, this is different. Right now, we are looking at this flag, which is neither Spain nor Ottoman, which is a huge relief. We do not have a Spain or Ottoman game on our hands, though I'm not sure what the civilization of the other player is. But here we have a Dutch player. Of course, Spain and Ottoman, very top tier on Vanilla Age of Empires 3, which is what we're playing. But here we have Garja choosing not to play it. Here, going for perhaps a different civilization. On water maps, Dutch is reasonable. It has schooners, it can fish boom, it can do this, that, and the other. It's got 3 float shipment, which is definitely very nice, and all of that kind of stuff. But as we can see here, some villagers on gold. He's looking to get all of the coin he will need to train all of the settlers that he wants to make in the Discovery Age. He also has 100 wood. He needs to lay down a house before he finishes this settler in queue, otherwise he will not be able to get the next one in queue, which isn't too good. Starting to herd in some stuff here, and by the looks of it, using his envoy to do some scouting. 250 food over there. That's a really nice treasure. Definitely very gettable. 160 wood there. That's probably better for him because he can get a bank out of that. But certainly, there we have it. The Dutch. Let's switch over to his opponent, Shmras, in the south of the map. Playing as the Ottoman. Of course, he won his previous game. As the Spanish, he can no longer play the Spanish. Spanish would be a very good choice on this particular game because Dutch, I suppose you can say, are counter-cived by Spain. Traditionally, Spain has a very nice matchup against Dutch, but he can't play Spain because he won with that civilization last game, therefore he has to play as a different one in switching to Ottoman. And since he wants to win, I suppose he's just going to keep playing the very top-tier civilizations. And I suppose they're only top tier at the very highest levels of Age of Empires 3, but you know, anyway, 60 food there, definitely going to help him age up a bit quicker. It's not often Ottoman players will get food treasures because they spend about a minute of their time building this, and then they have to scout for their hunts, and then if they see the 60 food treasure, they have to go over to it, and all of that stuff. And you know, getting 60 food is really nice for Ottoman because they already age up super quick. You're just going to age up even more quickly. Now going up to the colonial age with the governor, switching back to Garja, and you can see he hasn't even got the age up in queue yet. He's still making villages. Dutch also ages up very quickly, but you know, that 60 food definitely getting him up quite quickly there. Anyway, Ottoman, what is he going to do? Well, we saw him aging up with the governor, which is a 200 gold and an outpost. I think for, what is it, every single game he's played as Ottoman, he's gone for the fast fortress, which is just disgustingly good. Their fast fortress is really, really strong, and that is what he's going to do again this game. Of course, let's take a look at his deck. It does have some water capabilities now. It's got, of course, the frigate in there. I'm surprised to not see the 3 galley shipment, which is actually really, really strong. It does have 2 galleys and schooners, should late game he want to switch to making fish, or fishing ships, more to the point. But especially, you know, in the Fortress Age, he has his 2 cannon shipment, and he can mass janissaries up. And of course, the Dutch do not have a cannon shipment, making it, you know, pressure with cannons. Dutch sometimes struggle with that, but they usually, I suppose they do, they have to overcome it in some way. But anyway, here we see Garja switching his units onto wood. He wants to get 350 wood, 350 food, so that he can construct a bank during transition to the colonial age. He will be going up, most likely with 400 wood. We'll verify that. It is indeed the quartermaster, 400 wood. That is enough wood for a bank. He will have to collect the food. And then, once he's up to colonial, he can consider the shipments he wants to send, such as 700 wood. Which is enough wood for, you guessed it, 2 banks, though he might only make 1 and use some of the wood for a military building, a house, a market, whatever he likes. And of course, at that market, he can buy wood, which is actually efficient to do so, as Dutch, for the first couple of clicks at least, and as Dutch you do obviously have quite a lot of gold available to you. And that bank now going to go up. And doing quite well to get that up before he hits Colonial, because of course if he does not get the bank up before he hits Colonial, he won't have enough XP for his first shipment. But I think that 160 wood treasure he's found definitely helping him out with that bank construction. As you can see, he'll get a lot of XP off that, and that will hit up to his next shipment. But on Tad, the XP you get from a bank was nerfed. As you can see there, 140 XP out of that bank. Really, really nice, getting that shipment immediately. But on Tad you don't get quite as much, which is kind of sad for Dutch. Also, Dutch have an extra villager on Vanilla, when on Tad they don't. They only have 6 on Tad. Anyway, we'll see what his first shipment is. 700 wood, there we have it. So going to go with an extra bank and all that stuff. Let's switch back to Shmras and see what he's up to. Of course, you guessed it, 700 gold on the way. Going to go up to the Fortress Edge. Has a lot of food available, and that is all of the food he'll need, and if he collects up that gold nice and quickly, all of the gold he will need to get up to the Fortress Edge. So now we all know what he's doing. Let's switch back to Gaia. I suppose we can talk about what he can really do in this matchup. He's building both the banks on the front, in between the trees here, and the native village. This is going to kind of provide some pathing issues. He's going to kind of like create a wall in between his base. He can keep his skirmishes nicely packed behind here and make it difficult for his opponent. You know, in small gaps, skirmishes can be protected by just a few units, and you can keep them hidden, and you know, just like that. The downside of having the banks on the front is that they are vulnerable there, but at the same time, banks have a tremendous amount of HP, 4,000 HP, and they're very difficult to take down. Now, 700 wood on the floor there. I imagine what we'll see is possibly a stable from him to make some, well, maybe he'll make some hussars. I don't think he will, though. I think he'll want to go up straight away to the Fortress Age, but if he made some hussars, he could do some raiding. Actually going to go with the barracks. Actually, that makes sense, come to think of it, because he's playing against Ottoman. An Ottoman build, you guessed it, lots of Janissaries. Those skirmishes are going to be very useful for dealing with those Janissaries. And now something 8 pikemen, because he's going to need some anti-cavalry, I suppose, to protect those skirmishes with, should any cavalry enter his base and just annihilate his skirmishes. He doesn't want that to happen. So, there is that. I imagine his next shipment, or he probably won't send any. His next shipment will probably be nothing. He'll probably just go up straight away to the next stage. Of course, he has that wood coming in, so he'll construct his next bank. He'll have 3 banks, and then he'll gather all the resources he needs to go up to the next stage. Actually, he's going to make 5 skirmishes there, alright? And he's going to use them to... I don't think he wants to play in the colonial age. He'll want to go up to fortress if he's up against the Ottoman, I would imagine. Dutch are very strong there. They've got a lot more, you know, these unit shipments here, and they can train. Obviously, there's skirmishes that they can make in age 2 become veteran for free the moment you hit up, and of course you get Reuters as well. Anyway, Shmras, well on his way to the fortress age, going up with the marksman for 4 Abbas guns. Has a forward tower here. Also has a forward barracks. These pike. This is okay. That I should have realised that. I didn't think the skirmishers needed that much protection, since really Ottoman you won't expect to make much cav. But here, if he uses these pikemen, because of course he's expecting this fast fortress, he knows there won't be any units out just yet. He might be able to bring down this outpost before he can, of course, before he hits up. The risk is here though, if it doesn't go down, and of course Shmras almost aged, definitely almost about to get 4 Abbas guns here, and if he gets up, he's going to absolutely tear through all of these pikemen with, of course, those Abbas guns. Abbas guns popping out just in the nick of time. And that outpost is just on he's going to have to focus that down. Losing a pikeman there, he's probably going to lose another pikeman to these Abbas guns, and some Janissaries popping out. The pikemen need to go back, but he's going to press the issue, walk forward, try and kill off the Abbas guns. Oh, whoa, 3 pikemen go, all 8 pikemen now dead. There you have it. He traded an 8 pikeman shipment for killing the outpost. I don't think it was worth it. He could have saved that shipment for the Fortress Age, and it could have been worth it though. If he had brought that down, it had 20 HP just as these Abbas guns popped out. If he brought it down before the Abbas guns popped out of it, they'd be in his base. Over here, they'd have to walk. That'd give him some extra time. And of course, Dutch need time. Those banks need to generate resources. And he wants to get up to Fortress Age, because at the point he trained some skirmishers, I believe, he's not yet got the age up in queue. Of course, he will go up with the age up fast option now. 600 wood now on the way. Of course, that's going to be his final bank. And that 8 pikemen could be a 600 wood here, and that 600 wood could be a military shipment, which he's definitely going to need to defend this. Of course, though, since he did manage to bring down that forward tower, Shmras' military unit shipment, these 8 Janissaries, will take a bit longer to get into his base, meaning that these bank will perhaps stay up a bit longer, giving him a bit more time and all of that. But yeah, Gaia here, it's not looking too good for him. That 600 wood, though, is a Saguenay his final bank. It's also going to provide him maybe with a stable and of course the production facility, well, the houses that he'll need for population. But now going up to the next stage with the exiled prince politician, wants to get up there straight away so he can of course start to train units out of that barracks, well, out of the stable as well, which he doesn't have but should have soon. He wants those Reuters. I just see this 8 pike. I mean, the 8 pikeman might have been necessary if his opponent was going to go for to harass his skirmishers, but it's so unlikely that Ottoman will make cavalry because Janissaries and Abbas guns, especially Abbas guns, are just so much. It's just so strong. That bank going to go down. That's 700 resources he's going to lose there, and he's now lost that income. That is pretty. It's not pretty. It's not. And now going to siege down this one as well. Really, the Ottoman player is just waiting for. Well, he knows there'll be a shipment. I suppose the Ottoman players will expect there to be a military unit shipment being sent right now, but there isn't. And that is because he sent those 8 pikemen. But it is now available, and he'll be expecting, say, 8 skirmishers or perhaps 9 Reuters any moment now. Gonna lose 2 banks here. He's going to use those skirmishers to try and focus down those Abbas guns there. The Abbas guns very strong against everything. And 2 banks going down to this player. He needs to kill off that explorer. The explorer is slowing down these skirmishers. The Janissaries are allowed to get in range and absolutely destroy the skirmishers, which isn't very good. Skirmishers have such a long range. They don't want to be slowed down. He needs to put some villages in the town centre, perhaps. Losing a lot of skirmishers here, it's especially bad, considering skirmishers can stay out of the range so well from Janissaries. Calling his Minutemen there, nicely done, I would say. Perhaps if his Explorer was nearby, is however dead, he could get it into hand combat and slow these down, just as Blue was doing just a moment earlier. And then the Minutemen would be able to do lots of damage to these. 9 Reuters about to pop. Dutch is in a good spot now that he's up to Fortress, but having lost 2 banks, I don't know how good this is going to be. He's only got the 1 bank left now. If he had all 3 banks, he would be in a very good spot, but of course that delay up to the Fortress age, making those skirmishes perhaps slow him down a little bit, and it's just if he was in this spot with 3 banks, he would be doing very well indeed, but the Ottoman player had a little bit of time available to him before Dutch got up to Fortress to actually eliminate those banks, and Gaia's final game here is tournament life on the line, and of course this is the finals. There's a lot of money at stake here. He would, I suppose, like to win for that. Anyway, we see a lot of Janissaries here. All the Ottoman players just doing is single building, massing nothing but Janissaries, and the other units in his composition are coming solely from military unit shipments. Those 2 cannons have now arrived, of course. Giving him a little bit of extra time, since the cannons did have to walk across the map, but it's just like, these cannons are so well protected. He's going to have to, the only way Dutch can get rid of these is they don't have a cannon shipment of their own, so there's no way he can do it that way. He's going to have to do it by focusing them down the old-fashioned way with units. And the old-fashioned way, as if that was ever the old-fashioned way, but you know what I mean, what I'm trying to say there. Is, you know, of course, training Hussars would be okay for that, but then again, there are so many Janissaries there that it perhaps wouldn't be so good. And then the other option is these Reuters, which actually have a ×2 multiplier against artillery, though you still have to remember that cannons resist 75% of ranged damage. And here, those cannons doing a lot of damage to that final and 3rd bank of his, and without any banks, what is Dutch? What is Dutch without banks? Switching back to Gaia here to see what he's got. Of course, that 1,000 gold on the floor there for Shmras, going to collect that up. Now going to send Mamelukes, going to queue that any second now. There they are, Mamelukes in queue, switching back to Gaia. 7 Reuters, just not enough skirmishes to deal with this mass of Janissaries, and the Reuters are going to have to deal with the Mamelukes, but also he has cannons in here. He's got no way to deal with those. He's going to have to try and bring these Reuters around the side, which he is doing here. Perhaps you see there's actually the cannons on the wrong side there. He might actually be able, he doesn't know that they're there. If I turn the fog of war on, you can see he doesn't know the cannons are on that side, but if he comes in, perhaps he can shoot them. Cannons now coming back into the position of the Janissaries. The Janissaries on the wrong side. They're managing to get off 1 free shot, going to walk into the range of the Janissaries, killing off one of the Falconets. I think it was worth it, though he is going to take a couple of losses of course, these Reuters from these Janissaries there. Losing that Falconet could have been avoided. I think that what he did there was he evaluated that he got a 1-3 volley of shots off for free, and then he had to pay for the other one because he was in range of the Janissaries. But ultimately, I think that was a good decision to take out that 1 Falconet. Only 1 Falconet remaining, and he should, if he had 3 banks, or even just 2 banks, he'd be okay, but he's not okay. He hasn't got the economy to keep this up. The 3-bank fast fortress is very strong because it is so economically focused, and you can train these units, you can just keep training them. But without banks, what is it but a really terrible fast fortress that doesn't have the XP rolling in to keep the shipments coming, such as, say, Spain or Ottoman. And here we're waiting on Shmras' Mamelukes. They're probably, yeah, there they are. He's not going to engage until the Mamelukes arrive, because really, this is really strong. He'd probably win with just this, but why risk it when you could just get the Mamelukes involved, and those things are just so tanky. It doesn't even matter what your opponent has. Mamelukes have 1.5k hit points here. That cannon, oh no, I think he could get a volley there. Yeah, he's getting a volley there. Probably going to try and kill both. Yeah, killing the cannon there. I think that risk was actually quite good as well. That cannon didn't have to go down, but if the Janissaries were in the position in front of it, but it's actually, still losing a couple of his Reuters there, managing to neutralize the cannon. So Garja playing quite well despite the lack of banks here. Though it's going to be so tough. There are so many Janissaries there, and he really doesn't have enough skirmishers to deal with it. 5 Abyss guns now on the way, and of course these from the Shmras player, and the blue player also has these Mamelukes here. This is a nice position to be in the trees. It's really difficult for those Mamelukes to get to the skirmishers. Now coming around this side, switching over to the guy who is the defending side. We'll see what he's got. No military shipments on the way. He's going to have to fight with what he's got here. Those gold villagers being forced off. Of course, it's the same as all the other games with Ottoman. Ottoman with the Mamelukes just pushing forward and forward and forward and forcing you back, but in this particular game there are no pikemen to defend against the Mamelukes or Rodelleros because he's playing as the Dutch. He's got Reuters, which are, I suppose, better since they don't get so close to the Janissaries. They can always stay out of range of the Janissaries, and they're not going to die as quickly as, say, pikemen and stuff because of that. But at the same time, Mamelukes have a 40% ranged resist, and all the damage they're taking from these veteran Reuters, I mean, it is ×3 because that's the multiplier that they do. It's still, you can still see him just taking down. There we go, he calls the game just there. He's just getting forced further and further back. He does not want to be in range of those Janissaries, and that is the end of PK Clan Tournament 3. I present to you Bonang! No, fucking hell, that was the wrong one. The Shmras, that guy, yes. The winner of PK Clan Tournament number 3. That is the end of this event, which was actually concluded back in May of 2013, so if any of you thought this was live, then it's not. Well, it's live, me commentating it, but the game was not played live. Shmras, the winner of PK Clan Tournament 3. Oh, Tournament 3 is over. Tournament 4 is over. We need Tournament 5. Where is it? Come on, PK Clan. You need to host that thing, but they're busy with their Age of Mythology with the release of... I mean, who could blame them? They've got a sponsor lined up for like a $2,400 Age of Mythology tournament, and off the back of Age of Mythology HD, it's probably best for them to do that. But they will return one day with the next tournament for Age of Empires 3. But unfortunately, Garja not performing that well in this event, I must say. He in this one only one victory as France. He was a couple of games he could have won, and in PK Clan Tournament 4, he also only won one game, I believe, Iroquois, in the very first match. So, Garja, the king of second place, a very solid player to get this far into the event, but the king of second place indeed. He came second in PK Clan Tournament 1, he came second in PK Clan Tournament 3, and in PK Tournament 4 as well. So, there's that. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. That has been PK Clan Tournament 3, but stay tuned, because I will be doing some games of my own. Now I'm going to read the Twitch chat. Everyone's saying Bonang, well done Bonang. Whoops. Yeah.